Welcome to the Underground Dhamma Podcast, episode 12. Very special episode. We are on location. We're in the spirit spiral realm. And I am joined here by my co-host, Joana. Hello, Joana.
Hey, Juan.
Hi, and we have a very special guest and co-host, Diana. Hello, Diana.
Hey, what's up, guys?
We've been waiting to have you on. We've been talking about you in the last few episodes. I don't know if you heard.
Yes, I've been very nervous about it, actually.
Oh, man. Oh, at least you have some good spiritual friends to help you relax and calm down, come back to the moment with Bhante. But thank you for joining us, and thank you for hosting us, too.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Honored to be a little co-host with you guys.
Yeah, thank you. You actually brought us together. This is our first podcast that me and Joanna have actually been in person.
Yeah, this is the very first time we've actually been in the same room while we record an episode.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm glad that we can use the space. That's what it's for.
And we got a fourth co-host here with your Plato.
Yeah, my dog.
Loving friend. But yeah, thank you for coming on. And, I think you're number 2. Our first guest was Bhante Sanata Vihari.
Yeah.
I did a episode with my friend Ivan, but it wasn't really an interview, but you'll be our second true interview.
Aw.
And I know you've had a very interesting life, especially from some of the stories that Bhante has told us. So we're excited to know you.
I've been outed.
Yeah. Well, I usually like to start to just ask, what brought you to the Dhamma? What introduced you to the Dhamma? What brought you to the Dhamma?
Okay, I guess it's kind of a long story, but we got time, right?
We got time.
Yeah. My life hasn't been the nicest to me, but, I feel like nobody's has. Like, we've all been through, like, really sad situations.
Mm-hmm.
And I always felt like there was something I was looking for. I told this to Joana before. There was something I was looking for, and I wasn't sure what it was. But I was just looking through different avenues for this thing, right? And I remember at one point in my early 20s, I would jokingly say, I was in a really bad relationship at that time. And I would tell people, if this doesn't work out, I'm just going to go be a monk. And, mind you, I knew nothing about Buddhism at all. Like, I would just say this, and I just swore I was going to run away to the forest and start my life there. So.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, so then, fast forward a couple of years, and I was working at a dog daycare. I was drinking a lot, and actually got fired, but it's fine. And, that same day that I got fired, I walked out of that place because I started thinking about, all the circumstances that led to that moment. And it was completely my fault. And there was no feeling sorry for myself. But, I was, because I wasn't in the mind state to really acknowledge what was going on. But the thought that I had was I need to go to a Buddhist temple. And it was, I don't know why I wanted to go, because I didn't know what I was going to find there.
Yeah.
But because, I grew up Catholic. I didn't even grow up Buddhist or anything like that. I knew nothing about Buddhism.
Yeah.
So
especially being Catholic, I'm sure that they don't want you to be anything else.
Yeah. It wasn't something, to explore ever.
Yeah, exactly.
There wasn't even people I could talk to or that I knew of, to talk. So I ended up I Googled Buddhist temples, and I ended up at Wat Thai temple. I believe it's in, I want to say North Hollywood.
It's North Hollywood.
Yeah,
They're
right?
on Roscoe and Coldwater, I think.
Right. I remember I took an Uber there, and I was crying like a baby.
Oh, really?
And I walked in there, and it's so beautiful. You see the statues in the front, and just the temple's really beautiful. I walked in, and I think the monks were having a visit with a couple people. There was 4 people there, and I walked in crying. So they looked at me like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And I just sat down, and I was crying, and I was like, what am I doing here? I don't even know. They probably think I'm weird, you know? So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to walk outside. I walked outside of the temple, and they had like these little meditation huts. I don't know what you call them.
I guess they might be called kutis.
Okay, they had kutis.
Like a little hut where they can meditate.
And they actually have a bunch of them. I don't know if you've been there. I don't know if you've been there, Joana.
Yeah, I've been there, but I don't remember seeing them.
They're outside. You walk into the temple and you don't think there's anything else. But if you walk out into the other side, where the opposite side of where they vend food, the kutis are there. And I walked into the first one was this statue of a woman, and I didn't know. Mind you, I still don't know anything about Buddhism. And I just lit some incense, and there wasn't any candles, but I was trying to light a candle, but there wasn't any. And I just sat down and I started meditating. And there was actually a bunch of statues of this woman, just a lot. It's filled.
Really?
It's filled with it. And there's enough space for maybe 2 people to meditate. And I was crying and crying and crying. And then all of a sudden, I stopped crying, and I opened my eyes, and I remember seeing the statues, and I don't know what came over me, because you see the statues. I've looked at Buddhist statues, I feel like all my life, you just see them.
Yes.
And they're always kind of like their eyes are halfway open.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I had never looked at them this way after this feeling that I felt suddenly, it seemed like they were like, this is so silly. You're fine.
Oh, yeah? Did they speak English?
In my head, right? And I was like, oh, wow. I don't know who this statue is. I wish I knew. And I remember leaving, and that was it. I didn't go back to the temple. I didn't even look anything up, actually.
Wow.
I just, didn't go back.
And what year was this?
I want to say, I don't even know, 2015? 15?
So maybe 3 years before you got to the Sarithchandra temple?
Yeah, so then, I was in a band. I was in a punk band for a little while. We were called the Bloody Gypsies. Short-lived, but funny. Yeah. Good experience, amazing women that I played with.
Nice.
And I would go to LA, and, I still don't drive, so I would take the bus there, or if someone was going that way, I would go with them.
Yeah.
And that's where Justin comes into this, because he would go out there to Eastside Cafe to take some capoeira classes. And I remember he had asked on Facebook if anyone is going out there. It was a random day too. It was Wednesday. He was going that way. I was going that way. So I was like, yeah, And I remember he would give me rides, and we would talk about all kinds of things that he had mentioned going to Buddhism class a couple times. And I was like, oh, I've actually, been looking for something, but I didn't know where to look. How is it? I would kind of ask him questions until finally he took me on a Wednesday, and I saw the Bhantes. Actually, it was a Friday because they were all there. And I just liked it. And, I was really nervous because I was also struggling with anxiety and depression, just all the things, right?
Yeah.
All the things.
Everything Buddhism talks about. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was really nervous, but I knew that I had to come back. And that's how I ended up there, actually. Yeah.
So the first time you went, what day was it? Was it a Friday meditation day?
Yeah, it must have been a Friday because I remember seeing all the Bhantes.
Yeah. Did any of the Bhantes stand out more than another?
I just remember feeling so happy.
Wow.
I was like, oh, man, I've been looking for something like this for so long. And I remember Bhante Sanatha Vihari said at one point, all religions are flawed, even Buddhism. And I was like, yeah. And I know how he meant it, but it was more of the honesty. And there was something, I believe Bhante Kolita said also, it was about going and experiencing it yourself, not just listening, which was also made a lot of sense to me, where it's because a lot of times when you go to, maybe you learn about religions or different ones, so far that I've learned about, they don't really encourage, they don't really talk about you actually going out and testing the theories, right?
Yeah.
Or go test it and tell me what you think, and then we can discuss it. That was amazing to me. But that's what Buddhism is. You go and you test these things, And then if you have questions, you have the Bhantes, you have your Kalyāṇa-mittas, right? And they can guide you and tell you, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. It is, it's, I guess, to us, it sounds normal, right? These things Buddhism does sounds normal, but when I hear you describe it, you're right. It is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah.
Like us coming from somewhere where, questioning's not...
It's not encouraged.
It's not encouraged. You get in trouble.
Yeah. Like you get exiled.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember once as a kid, my mom was talking to her friend, and I asked a question about the story they're talking about, and they said, "Be quiet. You're not supposed to ask any questions. Don't pay attention." Wow. And ever since then, I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh my God.
And so you're right, to be somewhere where you're encouraged to ask questions, to experience for yourself. And, it reminds me of this story where the Buddha, he asked his top disciple, Mahasariputta, who was the chief disciple. Right. He asked him if he told him something, and then he asked him, "Do you believe me?" And Sariputta said no. And everyone was shocked, like, this is the Buddha. How can you say that? But it's basically the same thing that you just described, Bhante Kalita mentioned. So that's pretty cool.
It was also the way Bhante had said, every religion is flawed. Like, we know this. We all know everything is flawed. We're human. The human is a flawed being. So the things that we think are flawed, right? But there are ways to live good, to live well. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this is one of them. And I feel like that acknowledgement was very important for me to hear, because I often feel like maybe spiritual people are on this pedestal and they don't want to acknowledge that there's flaws.
Yeah, definitely.
But it was just really comforting almost. Like, okay, I'm not crazy for having questions,
Yep.
or feeling like maybe this isn't perfect, and that's okay, Not saying the Buddha isn't perfect, but you know what I mean,
yeah.
Right?
Oh, he's the ideal, and we're definitely not perfect, at least yet. But at least you're right. The fact that we can acknowledge that there are flaws out there, but like you said, there is a way to live our most harmonious life,
right,
within these flawed worlds. So very, very happy. Joana, I know that I talk a lot, so if you want to ask any questions, just jump in there, 'cause I'm going to keep talking.
Yes, I have a few questions for you, Diana.
Okay.
So Bhante Sanatha had suggested that we ask you about your spiritual journey, which you started talking about, but he also said
he's outing me.
He said, "Oh yeah, make sure you ask Diana about her experience working at a psychic shop."
Okay.
Yeah, so we were excited to hear about your experience in that field.
Okay, so after I got fired, and I feel like I've always been a very sensitive individual to things around me, and I've always wondered what it would be like to work at a metaphysical shop. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to apply. I'm going to see what happens. And maybe I was in my head imagining this perfect scenario. Everyone's going to be so cool. We're all going to get it.
That's funny.
And I was just creating this suffering already,
That's true. I didn't even think of it like that. You're right.
I set myself up really, really well for this. And, I had a friend that was working at this place, and I won't say the name unless you want me to, but
we already had a guest regret saying names on this.
So I'll just leave it out, but it's pretty popular, and it's actually one of the first metaphysical shops, I guess, on this side of LA and stuff like that. So they're doing amazing things. They've been around for years.
And may I ask, when you say metaphysical shop, which, by the way, I love that word, metaphysical is something awesome, because we live in a universe where everyone thinks everything exists, so everything's physical. So to question is metaphysical. So what do you mean by a metaphysical shop?
I guess everything that you can't see, or right. So this place had all kinds of religions mixed together. It was a melting pot of spirituality.
Yes.
There was Baphomets, there was Buddhas, there was Wiccan stuff. There was everything. Candles. People came in for spell work. People came in for jewelry, amulets, like anything. So what I did there was I used to love organizing the jewelry and like selling jewelry to people, but also I was a receptionist for the psychics, which is pretty hilarious to me.
Yeah, right? Aren't they psychics?
I would set up their phone calls because they only had like a certain amount of time, whatever. But the funny thing is, my first day there, one of my friends got me the job. And I remember they were training me and they were showing me how to use the phones because it's like, I think it had like 15 to 20 lines. So we had to keep track of everything. It was really insane. And, my first phone call, they're like, okay, you're going to say this, you're going to say this. And, they're all like getting me ready. And I answer and I say all the things. And there's just this lady just crying, like crying. Like there's a lot of suffering there.
Yeah.
Why was she crying?
I have no idea. I don't remember now, but it was pretty foretelling of my experience
overall or experience there.
It was, it was a lot. Like I think when I was telling you earlier about people being spiritual, we sometimes, I'm gonna say we, because I was part of this. I feel like we get caught up in that and we put ourselves on a pedestal and we forget that like we're actually susceptible to all these things too. It's like just because we quote unquote know more maybe, or we think we know more, and so it became kind of like fights of the ego there.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think there's even like a medical condition not to point any fingers, but I think there's a medical condition where people get high off thinking that they're part of an enclave that the normal person is not. And it kind of, like you said, it's a flight of an ego. It kind of boosts themselves up. But
right.
I forgot what the medical condition is called, but I literally saw it in one of the psychological books.
Yeah, I could see that, what do you guys want to know from that experience? I worked there for like 7 months, I want to say. And
So, I have a question. So, like, that's an interesting spot to work at. Did your life up to that point, childhood included, did you have any interesting, like, was that part of your life, this metaphysical type stuff?
Well, I grew up Catholic, and we weren't like good. I'm not that, like, I wasn't a good person, but like we would only go to church, on the holidays and the funerals, baptisms, quinces,
Christmas,
nothing too crazy. I did go to the youth group because my dad wouldn't let me out. So then my outings were joining this youth group, which, I was actually thinking about it the other day, and they helped me a lot, but also I didn't really learn anything about the Bible or about Catholicism, which is fine. But I didn't absorb any of it, and I feel like I really gave it a chance. Like I would pray to God and like hope for things, and I actually tried to be Catholic.
Yeah.
But it didn't work out, for whatever reason. I always felt like I was in, I could feel things. And I remember as a kid, I'll tell you a funny story. Yeah. I would get bored and I would try to move things with my mind,
What?
Oh, whoa. I mean, I never could, but I remember just sitting there and I'd be like, okay, I don't know. Oh, I would watch Sailor Moon. And I would watch like these superhero shows, So
Bante's favorite show.
I love that show. It's great. It's on Netflix right now. They remade it. But I remember sitting there I had specific memory. I remember sitting there and I was trying to move some statue and I was like, I'm going to move it. Oh, I remember now. It was this movie, Matilda.
Yes.
And she could move things with her
mind.
mind.
That movie.
I remember watching it. I was like, I want to try that. I want to try it.
You're like, if she could do it, I could do it.
Yeah. But I only got headaches.
Probably from the concentrating, huh?
I guess I was really focused and, I never moved anything. But like, there was always like an interest in like, other worldly things, like things that were beyond the physical, my sister would have like these prophetic dreams and like my family, actually, my aunts and everyone, they're really big on dreams. So we always share our dreams. And like,
wow.
I dreamt it. I dreamt this. So, I'm going to call this person because they were in my dream. Or like, I've always grown up that way. I don't know if it's like a certain belief, but that's just something that we take into consideration.
Yeah, it's like a reality in your family.
I guess, I have an interesting story, actually. When my grandpa passed away like 3 years ago, I remember he was a very proud man, and he very much enjoyed like this life, like this physical life. Like he enjoyed it. And even to his deathbed, he had written a poem talking about how much he enjoyed it and how much of a man he was. He was like this macho Mexican guy.
He wrote a poem?
Yeah, he had a whole thing. It was...
Whoa. I've never...
He loved this life for sure. And I remember I had a dream about him. It's kind of scary, but not. He was sitting in the living room, but with my family, and it was really dark and everybody was really sad. And I remember walking in and he was decomposing.
Wow.
And I could see that he was, because he had already passed away. And I was like, what are you doing here? You're already dead. And he was like trying to talk, but he was like,
couldn't.
He was cackling. It was like really weird. And I was like, you need to like leave. You can't stay here anymore. I'm like telling him that he can't stay here. And I remember telling my mom, she's like, oh no, voy a prender una vela. And like,
Un vaso de agua.
Yeah. So, they're really like, we share our dreams, which is not, I don't think it's common. I don't hear a lot of people do that in their families. I don't know.
In my family, we share our dreams. Usually the women.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But I have a sister who actually has really like disturbing dreams, and she refuses to talk about them.
Oh, wow.
But do you feel like in general, the dreams, when you guys share them with each other, do they happen? Like sometimes, at times?
I know that,
do they come true?
I know with my mom and my aunt, they have a thing where like they tell me like, oh, this happened, and your aunt had already dreamt it, and I was just like, okay.
Wow.
Which is, I see like that's, I find that like normal because I've been hearing it my whole life. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, especially from your elders.
Yeah,
they're telling you that because they're the ones that program us,
right,
and make us they program our reality into what's possible. So that's interesting.
Yeah, but what's even more interesting is that since I've been doing Metta, I haven't been dreaming actually. So,
what? Are you serious?
Yeah, it's fine. It's just, it's interesting.
I think one of they say like there's 11 benefits to metta. There's like a sutra, and one of them is that you go to sleep well and happy, and that you don't have bad dreams.
Right, and I was having nightmares for a long time.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's pretty badass.
There was a meditation that Bhante Samhita in New Jersey had told me to try, where you do the observation of the body or recollecting of the body. Yeah. And then you do metta before you go to sleep. So then if you fall asleep, the goal is to fall asleep doing metta, and you wake up doing metta. So then you can remember where you left off.
Oh, that just triggered a memory of a dream I had recently, like this last week. It's so interesting. Oh, I don't know. It's interesting to me. But I was sitting with like a friend from Sears, a girl named Christy, and I think like a dead, like I don't know if it was like a family member of hers, but like a dead person came back and was kind of like haunting. I don't know. This is in the dream. It was it was kind of like.
Oh, she was telling you. Okay.
Oh no! In the dream, it was happening.
You saw the dead person come.
Yes, although I can't picture him anymore, but I just remember like, oh, here's this dead person, and he's something like malevolent. I don't want to say like evil, but like something bad.
It didn't feel good.
It didn't feel good. That's the best way to say it. Wow. Thank you. And I remember I told her, it's okay. Let's just do this. May I be well, happy, comfortable, and peaceful. And we did it a few times, and we felt better like after a little bit. But it's funny, like I told her to practice this in the dream, and it's just something that I've started doing.
Wow, that is
great. Yeah, and I did have another dream where there was, in Catholicism, the biggest boogeyman is the devil, right?
Yeah, el cucuy.
Yes. So like I had this dream. I've had dreams where like that feeling, that like evil feeling, like scary feeling comes up, and I've done metta and then I feel better. But this time, like the quote unquote devil was in the dream, and I did the metta and he didn't leave. Usually it leaves. And then I said, well, what do I do now in my head?
Like I'm all out of weapons.
And then I realized I reached to my back pocket, like metaphorically.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I've read the sutra. Like this, I didn't say this, but it all happened immediately.
Yeah.
I said, I read the sutra. I'll do salutation to the Buddha. Because the Buddha said there was this boy who was sleeping in the cemetery, and he felt someone grab his leg, and he got so scared. And I don't know if the Buddha appeared to him or what, but told him, just do the salutation to the Buddha and you'll be fine. And he did it. And I did it. I'm like, the Buddha is spiritually perfect, harmoniously awake, a fully conscious behavior, attained to supreme goodness. You know, the whole salutation that we do, we chant. And yeah, the evil being disappeared.
We're like, no, don't call that guy.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I have theories about that, but yeah. So have you had any dreams, Joana, recently?
Recently, nothing very vivid recently, but I have had a crazy dream where I was with a high school friend. And then she had a daughter, and her daughter looked just like her. And then before I came across her, I was like roaming around in the jungles with this robot. And, and I just remember that my job was to protect people, or to help people, help people. So the robot was following me. And the robot would do everything I told it to do, but I didn't even have to speak. I could just like command it with my thoughts. And then I came across my friend, and I met her daughter. And then out of nowhere, we start running. And next thing I know, I'm in a cave, and there's like this white, it looked like human, but it was an ape. It was like it was like an albino ape, but it was more human than ape. And then he started like tearing her intestines apart, and she was like yelling at me, asking me to help her. And then I told I commanded the robot to get ready to shoot the ape. But then I thought about it, and I said, in my mind, I was like, no, this is wrong, because, I knew it was wrong. And the ape was just looking at me like, ready to like attack. And then I could see his teeth, and his teeth were like an animal's teeth. And then I was ready to shoot him, I didn't shoot him because I knew I was wrong. And then I woke up.
Yeah, I remember you told me about that. You were surprised that even in the dream you followed like the sila of not killing.
Because I was remembering the morals that I learned through Buddhism, and one of them was one should not kill, even if it's to protect someone. So it was like really like, it was difficult, but I could just feel that it was wrong, so I didn't do it.
How beautiful that you guys were both practicing in your dreams.
Yeah, cool. I know. My brother once told me that when you do something in the dream, it means you really want it, or you really believe it, or you really, I don't know if that's true, but that's what I think about when I hear your dream.
Oh, you know what? You just reminded me what your brother said. When I was a kid, like maybe around 9, 10, 11, 12, I used to have a dream all the time where I would be like walking around, and then I'd start flying, like floating in the air, and then I could go wherever I wanted, whenever I wanted. But then the older I got, it was so hard for me to start flying, and I would try so hard, and then I couldn't do it. And then one day I just gave up, and I stopped trying to fly. Oh,
that's like what happens to us. We're kids, and we're so limitless as children, and then we start limiting ourselves as we get, grow into adults, quote unquote adults.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of like in psychedelics, a lot of these programmings, these limits that we get taught, get melted away, and it's like you become a kid again almost, because you're seeing everything from brand new eyes with no concepts behind everything. So, and it reminds me, I always bring it up, Jesus' quote that he says, lest you become as children again, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. So very interesting. You're right. We as kids, you know, they say that they're living one big psychedelic experience.
Oh, that's cool. I've never heard that.
And then we kind of, I guess, start teaching them how to construct the world and reality.
There was that thing that Ram Dass said. I had seen it in his movie. You go to a somebody school, they teach you how to be somebody.
Exactly. Yes. Oh, I love Ram Dass. That's what I thought about when you mentioned how Bhante Sanata Vihari, when your first trip there to the temple, he said that, you know, religions are flawed.
Mm-hmm.
And like we all have flaws. It reminds me of Ram Dass, because if anyone's listening to Ram Dass, all he talks about, all his stories are all his flaws and how he uses his flaws to practice. And
that's good.
Yeah. It's so many. So I recommend anyone who's interested to listen.
But that's also good insight, because we can use our experiences to teach, you know. That's what I've been trying to do, is see the Dharma through my experiences, you know, and it's been very interesting. I've been saying, telling Bhante, Samsara every day, like everywhere. You can't get away with it. And everything, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure all our listeners said it at the same time too. It's funny because I have a friend at work who I've taken to the temple. His name's Alejandro. He's not religious at all. He might be even atheist, but his code, you know, most of the time, his code of ethics is very Buddhist, and his like way of thinking is very Buddhist. And whenever I'm getting yelled at by a customer, or it's a very difficult situation, he always goes, Juan, Samsara. And he always reminds me. I'm like, all right,
he's
you're
seeing
right.
it. Yeah, he's learning.
He sees it, and he reminds me of it, because I'm in like, all right, calm down, Juan. And then when I hear someone else say it, I'm like, all right, we understand. That's why we do need those spiritual friends out there, because or else we could get lost.
Totally. Yeah, it's always good to go back, and there's a little safe haven there.
Yeah, especially in Samsara, like you mentioned, this big ocean that we're all lost in. I was gonna say with no land anywhere, but
there's like these boats of light.
Yeah,
that we get into, and then they throw us back out. You know.
Yeah, you know that reminds me of a topic I wanted to talk about, but maybe we'll save it for later. But I was just gonna say, like, you know, right now we're in a realm, in a time period where a Buddha arose and taught the Dhamma, right? Mm-hmm. You know, 2,500 years ago, this human used his human effort and human intelligence to transcend the normal human state, which is, you know, filled with suffering. And because of him, even 2,500 years later, we are here. We have a podcast about Dhamma. You know, I'm saluting the Buddha in my dreams to get rid of the devil.
El cucuy.
So like, we're very lucky, and it makes me think. I was thinking recently, because you just said, you know, we see samsara everywhere. You tell Bhante you see samsara all the time, every day. You know, at a certain time, the Dhamma is going to disappear. And, you know, I think there's a time frame that Theravada people, you know, have an agreement on, that it's like 5,000 years. That's how long the Dhamma is going to be around.
Wait, so if the Dhamma was introduced 2,500 years ago, that means we have another 2,500 years to go until the Dhamma disappears?
Yes. And also there was another prophecy that I've heard once when I was first getting into Buddhism, that 2,500 years after the Buddha, that there was going to be like this renaissance of Buddhism in the world, like this reflourishing.
I think this is the time.
Yeah. Well, you know what, you know, me and you, Joana, we always talk about that we like to reason things out. We can figure out the movies, you know, as it's happening.
Yeah.
Well, I started thinking, I'm like, well, let's think about it. What part of the world has not been introduced to Buddhism? The Spanish South American, Central and South American world.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, these people are very devotional, you know, they're
very spiritual too.
Very spiritual. And, you know, all they've been introduced to has been, you know, I only know the Western part. I know you have, Diana, you have done a lot of work and studying with the indigenous cultures and indigenous religions. I don't know. Can you call them religions?
They're just ways of life.
Ways of life,
Yeah,
practices.
yeah, practices, just like Buddhism, you know.
Wait, like what religions have you been learning about?
Well, you know, I've been, you know, I'm still on this search, right? This grand search.
Yeah.
I've been introduced to Mexica Cayo, which is like a mixture of the indigenous communities in Mexico, what we know as Mexico.
How do you say that?
Mexica Cayo.
Mexica Cayo.
Yeah. So, and it's pretty much, you know, maybe I'll write it down one day, but there's a lot of parallels with Buddhism. Maybe not all, because you know, they have rituals and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think that at the core, they're just trying to be good people also.
Yes.
And, you know, I also was part of a beading circle here in San Fernando, which is originally Tataviam territory.
Is that like a indigenous group?
Yeah, this is who was here before the Spaniards came.
It's not.
Colonized
Is it Native American?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So
is that okay to say Native Americans? I don't know anymore.
It kind of depends on who you're talking to, and I'm not even the right person to ask, honestly. But
you're our expert.
No. But yeah, you know, I learned a lot from them also, and how they're trying to pretty much just tell people they're still here. There's a lot of Native communities that are still here. They weren't, you know, in Western history, which you learn in LAUSD, or, you know, at least what I learned.
Yeah.
You learn very small, the Native Americans, and then they disappeared, and that's it. And but they're actually still here, and they're thriving, and there's a lot of movements and work that they're doing to reconnect with the land and reconnect with their people. And you know, there's like high suicide rates in like Native Americans. So like there's a lot.
Why do you think that is, Diana?
Well, they were displaced from their land and put into reservations that were depleted. Like they were pretty much deserts, I want to say. So they couldn't even grow food or anything. And what the U.S. would give them was just like flour, just like really bad food. And they introduced alcohol to them also, which is you know, there's a long history there. That's another conversation for another day. But I think at the core of it, that I've been lucky to be in ceremony with people, with Native people. You know, they're just trying to be good people. And I mean, any of you can go and see what indigenous group is part of the land that you live on, and you can go connect with them, because that's actually what they want. They want people to know they're still there, and just, you know, like be acknowledged and remembered and respected, and that's it. You know.
Yeah, that's true. You know, it's a big group of people who were here, you know, before like you said, we in our school they don't really teach us too much about it, you know.
No, not at all.
It's just a little bit of the interaction of the first colonists that got here, and then that's it.
Yeah, they don't paint the whole picture, you know, and the whole picture isn't a pretty story. That's why.
Yeah, and it doesn't have the U.S. in the best light, I would imagine.
No.
Yeah.
Recently, I read an article somewhere online talking about how someone discovered like over 200 bodies of children, Native American children, that were buried behind an elementary school somewhere in Canada.
So these schools, they were called residential schools, and they would actually, this is really sad, they would actually take the Native children away from the families, and they would put them in these schools where they would cut their hair. And like for indigenous people, having long hair means something. It's like significant. Yeah. They would cut their hair. They would
what does it mean, Diana?
It means different things. I can't really like specify. It's like depends on who you talk to. But it's for the most part, I feel like it's a very much like a powerful thing to have long hair. You know, it's
like very spiritual too.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
So.
I once heard someone say that some natives believe that long hair gives you the ability to feel things, like, I guess, you know, things that are not seen.
I don't know, you know, how true that is, but I know that Native people or Indigenous people, and I don't want to even generalize it, but, you know, they're very much connected to the earth and the elements and everything around them. So everything like physical, you know, everything around you, it means something. And it's not just an accident, you know, it's like synchronized.
Yeah, it's kind of like a objective paticca samuppada. Like they see the interconnection of everything.
That's a good way to put that.
Yeah.
Because I've had actually conflict, kind of like, well, you know, am I engaging too much in the physical if I'm like, you know?
Yeah. Especially in Buddhism.
Yeah, so that's actually interesting. Maybe we could talk about that later.
Yeah.
So in these residential schools, they would to cut a native child of their hair and then punish them if they spoke their native language, and you know, they're finding out there'd pretty much be a school to take out any spiritual indigenous aspect of who they were and train them to be
American or Canadian.
Yeah, Canadian American.
Why would they take them away from their parents?
Because they didn't like Native people.
Yeah.
The U.S. Has a long history of extermination and genocide, and that's a whole nother conversation also.
Yeah, it's I'm imagining it's easier to like retrain them on how to think and how to see the world.
Well, you take a child away from their mother, and you know.
Yeah, you know, and the Buddha called the parents like the true God, the Brahmas.
Mm-hmm.
So it's true, you know, and this has happened also like in Sri Lanka, and like a lot of places, where they try to retrain the younger generation to give up the traditional ways of seeing the world and religion. That's kind of sad.
Yeah, it's really sad. It's a way of colonizing a land, and they were successful at it, you know. And luckily, like the youth now, the native youth, I see a lot of movements going on, and they're trying to reclaim who they were. And the count for the residential schools, that was only one school, I believe, where they found the 200 buried in the back of the school. The count's over 5,000 now, and they haven't gone through all the residential schools. So,
oh my God,
it's really sad, but it's also it's an awareness that I feel like people needed to see because they were in denial for so long. And it's good to look at reality for the way things are, right? Not what we want them to be, not what we want the U.S. to look like.
This is where Joana always says, looking the ugly truth in the eye.
Yeah.
And these schools that you mentioned that they would take the children, was this during not that long ago, or is this like hundreds of years ago? Or?
No, it wasn't that long ago. I'm not the right person to ask. I am not the right person.
You got me interested.
No, yeah. Maybe we can talk about it later, but it definitely wasn't that long ago. It seems like a long time ago because we didn't learn anything about this. You know, not many people even know that there were residential schools or that the native kids would get taken away. You know, I read an article that some of the kids, the accounts of some of the kids there, and it's really sad. Like some of the kids remember the priest throwing babies in the furnace.
Damn.
So it's like there's a lot there that just sad.
A lot of horrors. This is, I guess, you know, from a Buddhist perspective, this is the samsara that we talk about, like just pure ignorance, pure unconsciousness, and just like a aimless blindness, which was kind of what I was going to say. Like, you know, if this is happening during a period where there is a Buddha, like imagine how much worse it is when there is no Buddha around and no Dhamma around.
Oh, remember I was talking to you about the time periods? What are they called?
The Yugas.
Yes. So I was reading about the Yugas, and I was asking you, I was trying to confirm with you, are we on the fourth Yuga?
Yeah. So I don't know if you know.
I'm not familiar.
No, so in Hinduism, they see, the Western world sees time as like linear. It goes from the past to the future, the beginning to end. But in the Hindu world, they see time as cyclical. It's just this one big cycle happening over and over and over. And they see this cycle starts and ends, and there's four phases of the cycle. And the first phase, it's everything is great. Everything, they say Dharma really runs the universe. And then the second cycle, it's evil or bad, unskillful behavior starts to show its face. And then the third cycle, it's like half, like, we don't know what cycle, whether it's goodness or badness is more prominent. And then the fourth cycle is really, it's really unskillful, really bad. They say everyone's just governed and dominated by searching for sense pleasure and stuff like that, But in that fourth cycle is called the Kali-Yuga. And they say that cycle, that part of the cycle is the hardest period to try to become awakened. It's almost impossible, they say.
Like, it's the most toxic, would you say?
Yeah.
La tóxica.
La tóxica. How many memes do we see about that? But what made you bring that up?
Because we're talking about how the world is.
Oh, yeah.
At different like how Buddhism has affected us, but
and how the world is when there's no Dhamma.
Yeah.
Well, I always bring up what Alan Watts said, that everyone always tends to think that this is the worst time in the world. So everyone always thinks that they're in the Kali Yuga, they say. Oh, that's something to tie this to the Kali Yuga. Ram Dass had a guru. Did you know that, Diana?
Yeah.
Yes. So his guru, Ram Dass was giving him LSD to figure out what it was. The guru took it the first time and nothing happened to him. And he took like 3 times the normal dosage. Yeah. And then he took it again another time. And he finally gave Ram Dass an answer. He said that LSD or psychedelics is a way to be with God.
Oh, wow.
And that in the Kali Yuga, the phase where everyone's just so not spiritual, they had to find a way to be with God through a material way.
I could see that.
Because this is the most materialistic age. And so that's very interesting. Do you have explorations with psychedelics?
I knew you were gonna ask. Yes, I do.
Last time my friend's like, sorry, Ma.
I'm like, the Bantes are gonna listen to this.
That's what I said. I'm like, sorry,
Bantes. Yeah, I do actually. I've actually tried a couple things.
Well, it's. I mean, in part of the indigenous religions or cultures or practices, it's normal, wouldn't you say?
Yes, and I think it's, in that sense, I don't see it as a psychedelic, because they don't see it like that. They see it as just like part of something that they do to.
It's almost like how Buddhists practice meditation and jhana.
It's just like something you do. It's not, and it, even the Bhante say, like, magic. Remember I was telling you, it's just like you're not supposed to get it like asphyxed, like I guess you're not supposed to focus on that part of like it being like, oh, this like mystical experience, but more of like, what is this trying to teach me?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where people miss the mark. Or maybe they do it for fun and, they completely miss the mark on that. Everyone's different. Everyone's going to have their own path and journey and
like introspection.
Right. Because in my experience, I've never really done it for fun. And the times that I've had, it's gone really bad. So
when you did it for fun, it's
or just bad? Like casually, which I don't encourage anyone to do. Like take some mushrooms and hang out with your friends, and it's just never.
It's not a good idea.
It's never been good for me. The last time I was like, I need to change my life. Like, it's always the same message for me, and that's what I feel it's interesting that people can take it over and over and over, and that's scary to me, because I'm like, I don't want to. It's usually like very much introspection, and it's telling me like, the things I need to work on, and it brings out all the things I don't want to see. And I'm like, why do people do this for fun?
Yeah. That's interesting. Why do you think they do it for fun?
Maybe it's been commercialized like that way. And I think also if your mind is in a state of like not taking things, I don't even know how to say it. I don't know.
Seriously?
Maybe if you're not in the right mind state.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, maybe it's like people are, our normal type of consciousness, it's not very pleasant. It's not very, like, relieving. It's not very, although people always are everyone's trying to get pleasure, trying to fill their whole day with pleasure. How can I get pleasure? Right when I wake up, can I get pleasure? Let me drink some coffee. Let me watch some TV. Let me look at the social media. We're all just trying to fill our days with pleasure, and that's very tiring, at least from what I've noticed from my experience. And so I think people, I never did it for fun. I've only done LSD once and mushrooms like once. And each time it was just with one person, and it wasn't to party. But so I can't really say why someone would take psychedelics to party, but I would imagine is that they need a break from this ordinary consciousness. And maybe they don't know anything spiritual. Maybe even though this is a spiritual experience, these psychedelics, they may not see it as spiritual, but they recognize the relief that it can bring from getting you out of your normal unhappy consciousness.
My first experience when I was 21 with mushrooms was it was very spiritual. Like, actually, it was so amazing. I didn't do them for 6 years or something crazy. Like, I felt like I didn't need to, I remember that everything started moving, and I just like saw how everything was connected. And I can't really explain it in words, honestly. But I remember my friend gave me this flower, and the flower was telling me it was dying. And so then I just, like, the rest of my experience became me dying with this flower. And like, I was very hyper aware of it, and I was watching it breathe. And when it died, I remember I just like was okay with it dying, and I put it down. And I remember coming down from that whole thing, and I had told myself, like, for sure there are other realms. I feel like this was an indefinite, this for me proved that there was other things that I couldn't see that are experienced, that are happening without my acknowledgement.
Yeah.
And they don't need my acknowledgement, they're just happening.
Yeah.
But I was like, also because I reached this state, I know there's a place in myself that I could reach this state. There has to be a way to reach this state without this psychedelic. Yeah. And I remember when I learned about Joana's, I was like, oh, I think this is it. I don't know if it's it, because I obviously haven't experienced it, but I feel like maybe that's what's
they're talking about.
Or maybe it's a different kind of experience, which I'm pretty sure it is, because I don't know, but I feel like I had one of those aha moments, like, oh, this is my answer, like, yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. I think you're right. It's like we're like, that's what I was kind of talking about, how everyone's stuck to this normal consciousness, this normal way of perceiving reality. And, that gives you a little glimpse of like, oh, there's these other ways of perceiving reality, and they're there. Mm-hmm. And I can experience it. It's within me. And you're right. Yeah.
Because I was the one experiencing it, and I took this thing, right? But there's something in this body that makes that happen, that can attain those other realms or see other things. So definitely there's a possibility there. That's what I learned,
Yeah. And did it make you happy?
It made me more curious. I was like, there's obviously like more I don't. I mean, I feel like I don't know anything still, But
very wise. Well, I felt the same as far as like when I learned about jhana, I was like, oh, that at least it started putting a framework to what that experience was. Like,
right.
oh, there are other ways of perceiving, and there's other ways to be happy. But yeah.
That being said, I feel like when I started meditating for real with the Bhantes, it's very psychedelic. You know, people talk about doing these things and ingesting these things, but meditation itself will like take you to some crazy places. Just like observe it for a little while. You don't need to ingest anything. It's pretty crazy.
It's true. Wasn't your first experience meditating very psychedelic almost, Joana?
Yeah, I remember the first time I went to the temple on my first meditation session. I started doing, I think I got there like after the metta had been finished, and then I'm not really sure, but all I remember is that I started doing the breathing meditation. And I remember Bhante Kolita said to relax the body, to become aware of the body, and then relax the body. So I realized after I closed my eyes and I brought attention to my body, I noticed that my shoulders were so stiff, and I relaxed them, and then I was relaxing everything else, and then I was doing the breathing meditation, and I felt so peaceful that I remember the color. You know how when you close your eyes, you can see a color sometimes?
Yeah.
So everything turned like a pink, soft pink cloud. And then I started to, as I went into the meditation, and I was just like enjoying relaxing my body. And then I imagined myself like float, not like me literally, but like an image of myself floating in the air and kind of like a cloud. And then I had the thought that I was like, there's no way I'm like dreaming right now. I could have sworn I was dreaming. I was like, oh my God, I think I passed out. I'm dreaming. And then next thing I know, Bhante Kolita rings the bell, and then I snap out of it and I open my eyes, and I'm still sitting I'm still sitting up. So my conclusion, my hypothesis as to what happened that day is that I think that I was so used to being so stressed and having so much tension and being in a toxic environment at work, that I was like so stressed out, and I forgot what it was like to relax. So when I jumped into meditation that day on my first session, it was so relieving that it literally like it was like an amazing experience, I guess.
Wow.
And it stuck with you. It made you want to keep coming back.
Yeah, I was like, what happened? I was like, oh my God, I have to come back. And I was back the next Friday and the next and the next and the next and the next. And I was like hooked on it. But this is the thing. I was chasing that experience, the one I had in the very beginning. I couldn't get it to happen again.
Chasing the dragon, that's what they call it.
Yeah. And that's common in psychedelics, isn't it?
Yeah.
People always, they have to like up the dosage to try to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chasing the dragon.
The pink dragon in this case.
Man, yeah, that's cool. I always like your experience, Joana, because it shows us that you can get to these other types of perception through different methods. You know, not everyone is it going to be a psychedelic. You know, there's that story of Ram Dass where he was giving a lecture, and it's famous, and his audience used to be nothing but like hippies and these young kids. And then as it went on, more people started showing up. And then in this one lecture, there was this old lady with like a big hat with flowers on it. And like everything he was saying these like very far out ideas. And she kept just like nodding her head like, oh, yes, I understand, yes. And that after he went up to her and he talked to her, And he said, like, how do you know? Like, you were agreeing with everything he said. How do you know? And that she like went close to him and said, I crochet. and so like it really blew his mind. He said he saw right then and there that you can get, it doesn't, not everyone has the same trigger that stimulates these different states of mind.
That's so true.
And like, I remember, I don't know much about like indigenous cultures, but I remember growing up, the little things I would hear, it's like they would go on like vision quests like go out.
I went on one.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, is that when you were out in the woods?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I did a vision quest 2 years ago now, not that long ago.
Oh, wow.
And it really, they leave you out in the woods for 3 days with no food or water.
What?
And,
no water either?
No water. I know, right?
Where was
you
this?
looked at me like, what? It was up north on Olón territory by Sacramento, what they call Sacramento.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a few of us, and we were all, they took us up like in the middle of the night. It was like 1 a.m. I don't remember anymore. And you could only carry what you're going to use. So we had to be mindful of what we took, because you're carrying it all up the mountain, and you couldn't take a lot of things. You couldn't have a flashlight. Sorry.
It's okay.
You
You couldn't have a flashlight?
No flashlight, no tent, no phone, no water, no food. Yeah.
So what did you take?
I took a backpack. I took my drum. You're supposed to set up an altar, for the ancestors, or we I guess we would call hungry ghosts.
Yeah. In Buddhism, you mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, so the point is there, like you take these prayer ties, so you make prayers, and you're praying there, and you're looking for a vision. I guess you're in search of a vision, right? And most people could have visions. I'll tell you the beginning of it. I told you the other day. I remember they took me up there, and I think I was like the third one to get dropped off up the mountain, and right away I was like, I brought too many things. This is heavy. Like I was already regretting it. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, it's dark. I don't have a flashlight. Yeah. What if a bear comes? All of the thoughts.
It's crazy how your body just starts, whether it's like it's secreting the hormones or chemicals to make you have these thoughts or what. Yeah. But it's crazy.
So again, setting myself up for failure. So they drop me off, and you're only allowed like this square that they make, and it's big enough for you to sleep in. And, you're only allowed to go outside of it if you're going to use the restroom. So I set up my sleeping space I had a sleeping bag, and I was already really afraid. And I remember looking out, and there was a tree next to me, and I see like this figure with like lime green eyes, like your typical It's because it's so like my mind couldn't create something more creative. Like I just like resorted to this, like, if I could draw it, I'll draw it for you next time.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Hope it doesn't scare me.
So I saw this thing in the trees, right? And it had the lime green eyes, and it was trying to scare me. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on?
Damn. I'm surprised, like, people I would imagine would have a panic attack.
I've seen things before, and that's stories for another day, but I wasn't scared. I mean, I was scared, but I wasn't. I especially learning everything in Buddhism.
Yes.
I started doing metta. So
when you thought you perceived a being, you did metta?
Yeah. Because I had just started going to the temple also at the time that I did it, and I started doing metta, and I was calm. I calmed down, and I looked out. It was still there. And I was like, well, it's not doing anything, so I'm just going to go to sleep. So I went to sleep, in the morning I I woke up and I looked out like right away because it was like the sun was out, so nothing can harm me now, right? But yeah, it was just really funny, you know.
That's crazy. Imagine for like early human beings, they had no lights, no nothing. That's probably their experience every night.
What was also interesting, that same night, everything was so loud. I heard all these kinds of noises. Aside from seeing that, there was like these really like scary noises, you know, and I was so afraid. And in the morning when because I was sitting there all day, you know, I was paying attention to everything around me, and then I would see what bug made what noise. And these bugs are really loud, like like the smallest cricket, you know, making these loud clicking noises. There was this woodpecker that would come every morning, you know, like, I don't know. Wow. It was funny.
And that was for one night, 2 nights?
3 nights.
3 nights.
You said 3.
So.
3.
Yeah.
And was each night that, like the second night and the third night, was it easier?
Yeah, I was actually really comfortable. Like I was afraid because obviously it was a new experience, and you know, obviously, like, I think anyone would be. If you're not, then you're lucky.
Oh yeah. I'm telling you, like I may have had a panic attack.
But it was really nice to just be and really experience everything, like be very mindful. I guess it was like meditation. I was meditating out there also, you know, and
oh yeah, since you don't have any distractions like technology or food or
I cried
water.
a lot, you know. Yeah.
I always bring it up, you know, the Zen masters say that you haven't really meditated unless you really wept.
I was reading the Ajahn Chah book, and it said that he cried a lot when he was in the forest.
Really?
Like, yeah. Remember I was yeah, it was you don't think about that, you know?
Yeah, I remember you were reading it.
But yeah, I cried a lot, and it was good, you know. I guess I needed it. There was one night that I did see something pretty awesome. And I remember, I don't remember what night it is. Felt like it all kind of blurred together. But I was looking up at the stars, and I actually like really enjoyed doing that. So it was awesome for me to be in the mountains and see no light pollution.
Must have been a light show.
Yeah. So I remember I was watching this star, and it was moving really odd. Like, and I don't know what that was. Like, it was just like it would go this way, and then it would go this way. And it was very abnormal for a star.
Yeah.
I don't think that was a star.
Yeah, no, totally. I don't know what that was, but it didn't feel bad, you know.
You know, my friend Greg, he sometimes works in our store. He goes to the Zoom meditation we go to. Mm-hmm. He told me that if you look up, you're gonna see like unidentified flying objects.
Totally, yeah.
And he said that he told his wife, because they were out in the woods, he said, watch, you're gonna see. And she's like, yeah, right. And soon enough, they saw something, and she was shocked. But he told her, just remember this. Oh no, because she was like freaking out. She's like, who do we tell? Who do we call? And he's like, look, nobody. But just remember this. And she says, why do you keep saying that? He goes, because you'll forget. You're going to forget that you saw this. And I think that's something that happens to us a lot. But it's interesting that you saw that, you know. What did you think of it?
I've seen, I used to go to my parents' front yard and just like lay down and look at the sky. So I would actually see a lot of weird things also. But I had never seen a star do that. And I was like, oh, I wonder what this is, you know, and I was real curious. But I stared at it for a long time and nothing else happened. So at least to my memory. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. No, but yeah.
It's interesting because now I was thinking about aliens. So I'm glad you brought this up. I'm like, do I bring this up? Do I bring up aliens? But because I was going to say, if I were out there, that's what I'd be scared of. I'd be scared of aliens. And then after reading the sutras, like there's aliens all over the place in the sutras.
I'm pretty sure it was something like that.
And you know, recently there's been all these videos and like declassified stuff coming out, like military people talking about the experiences they've saw that they can't.
Like, what did you hear?
like there's videos of pilots following, like the most famous one recently was like this, it looked like a plane or something, and if like it ascended really fast, like 50,000 feet, and then descended right next to the water, and then disappeared into the water. And you know, if someone saw that, they'll be like, that, yeah, they made that up. But this was like footage from like a jet, like a military jet. And so like it's not something that and they have the recordings of these pilots talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not making this up, you know. No one wants to be the weirdo
That's why I was classified for so long.
Yeah, exactly. So it's interesting. What do you think about aliens? I don't think we've ever talked about aliens, Joana.
I'm very curious about aliens. I think it's an interesting topic. And recently I was listening to another podcaster. His name is, what's his name?
R.A.W.
Yeah, R.A.W. And he was talking to a friend of his who claims that she was, she's like clairvoyant. And she said that she had an experience as a child where, you know, she was abducted along with her family. But she said that the experience seems like a dream. But so Aaron Dowdy and his friend, I think her name is, I can't remember her name. But anyways, they start talking about aliens, and then they start talking about how aliens came and they're like interested in DNA matter. And they like they mate with humans, and then that's how it changed. That's how human evolution changed. Like apparently they were saying that originally humans actually look like more like apes, the original forms of humans, right?
Yeah.
But that once they mated with aliens, that's what changed the DNA.
Oh, that's interesting. I have never heard that.
I've heard this before.
Really?
Or read it, you know. You go down the rabbit hole of the internet. You'll get there.
I have never heard about this. I was like, whoa. And then I started thinking, and then I've been reading the book, Autobiography of a Yogi.
Oh, yeah. How's that going?
It's good, but I'm reading it slowly because I really want to like understand things. And they were talking about what are those time periods called again?
The Yugas.
The Yugas. And then, so the reason why it's kind of taking me long is because every now and then I have to look stuff up because I can't, like there's things I don't understand, or so I try to research because I want to know what they're talking about, and I really want to understand what they're saying, you know? So I was looking up the Yugas, and then I got lost in the Yugas, you know, like an hour later, I'm like looking at pictures, and then I saw a picture. It was a Hindi picture of like monkeys.
Hanuman? I don't know.
Like Hanuman. But there were a bunch of them, and they were building a bridge. Okay, so then that image reminded me of what Aaron Dowdy was saying with his podcast host, how they were saying that, you know, the originally humans were in the form of apes. And then I see this Hindi, I'm reading Yogananda, and I'm like, I get lost in a little, you know, some research, and then I see this picture, and I'm like, oh, and then I put two red dots together, and I was like, maybe it's true.
She told me how, Joana told me how you were talking about this book in New Jersey when you were out there in the retreat, which, by the way, the listeners, Diana went to the same retreat that Joana went.
Yes.
Which we'll probably get some of your thoughts on too. But I told her, because she said she was going to read the book, and I said, oh, you're going to see a lot of miracles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I remember you were like, you're scaring me.
Oh, okay.
And so that's probably what I imagine you were thinking when you saw that monkey. It made that like.
Well, actually, it started to open my mind.
Good.
Like I started opening my mind to these to this other way of seeing the world, which in that book, you know, he's like, they have so much faith. Like they're teaching, like in this book, I'm realizing that the things that we thought were impossible are not impossible. And so then I was talking to you about the book and to Juan, and then I was telling Juan, the fact that I got all these little things started happening, those little things are miracles. Oh, and there's this quote in the book where Yogananda says, he says, humans are so quick to forget their blessings, the miracles in life. And then next thing you know, as soon as we come across another difficulty or challenge, like we lose our faith, like wavers, and we forget about all the other things that have happened, you know, in our favor after we like asked or prayed, or, you know, like it's so easy for us to forget these things. And then earlier you were talking about how your friend Greg was with his wife camping, and then they saw an
unidentified flying object.
And he was telling her, remember this. And she was like, why? And then the fact that he was telling her to remember, that shows me that Greg is very aware that humans have such, like the average human has such fleeting memories. Like, why is it so easy for us to forget these things?
That's a good question. I mean, I can only theorize.
Speculate. I can only speculate.
I'll only answer if you answer the yes to this question. Do you understand I am speculating?
Yes.
All right.
that was
Robert Anton Wilson.
Yeah.
That's what he would say, because they would ask him about conspiracy theories, and he didn't like answering, because then people thought he was saying that was what's happening.
Yeah, they all believe everything he says.
So, but I mean, I have to speculate. I think, you know, evolution designed us to forget everything besides our prime directive, which is get pleasure and procreate. Survive, get pleasure, procreate. And that's it. So, you know, and that's why I think in the book, have you read Why Buddhism is True, Diana?
You know, it's on my list. That
It's
one's
on your list.
definitely. You guys always bring it up, and I'm like, I know that one. You know?
Have you read that one, Joana?
I started reading it, and then it was going to be late, and I returned it.
No late fees. They don't charge you anymore, Joanna.
I didn't know. I realized it after I returned it, and I got an email saying no late fees. And I was like, oh.
There's no late fees?
No more late fees for libraries.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's because they can't compete with the internet.
I guess not. Yeah.
Well, in that book, it says how the evolution designed the organism to experience pleasure, and for pleasure to be fleeting, like it's gone immediately. And it's designed to do that so that you're constantly going for it again. Because if you...
Chasing the dragon,
the pink dragon.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably where it came from.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, if you, because they said, like, if you experience pleasure once, then you're never going to go after the things that cause you to survive and procreate. So that's what I would imagine why we forget these things.
I think you're right, Juan. And I knew you were going to tell me that, but I wanted you to say it because I wanted to remind the audience why we forget these things.
Yeah. I mean, that's what... Oh, I had written something down that I wanted to talk about. And that reminds me. So there is this sutra that we were going to talk about. We were planning on talking about the Buddha, about his 3 powers that he has, because the sutra is called the Tivija Vajragota Sutta, and this guy, his name was Vajragota, who kept going after the Buddha and like asking him deep questions. And the Buddha, at first, the first question he asked him was something like, does the Buddha exist after death, or does the Buddha not exist after death, or does the Buddha neither exist or not exist after death? And the Buddha stayed quiet. He didn't answer him.
Was that a yes?
Well, he didn't answer. He stayed quiet.
Okay.
And then Ananda told him, like, why didn't you answer? And he said, because whether I answered yes or no, it would have kept him lost in the wilderness of perspectives. And then later he came up and asked something else, and he asked the Buddha, "Hey, I've heard people say that the Buddha is constantly omniscient about everything in the universe all at once."
Wait, omniscient means aware?
It means that you know everything, not just aware, but like you
understand how everything works.
Not only just understand, you know what everything that's happening all at once.
Like the X-Men. What's his name?
Professor Xavier.
Yeah.
Where he has Cerebro. Yeah, I'm wearing my Wolverine shirt.
Love X-Men.
But the Buddha said, no, that's not true. Because the guy said, I heard that the Buddha is constantly walking around knowing everything all at once. And even Robert Anton Wilson would always say, the universe cannot be comprehended all at once. It's impossible. And he said it's non-simultaneously apprehended. It's impossible. But the Buddha also said that. He said, no. He said, he didn't say I only. He says, I have 3 powers. If someone said that the Buddha has these 3 powers, then it would be correct. And the 3 powers are the 3 knowledges that he gained on his night of awakening. And they were, 1, being able to see all your past lives. All of them. You can't even finish seeing them.
That's a lot of information.
How did you even retain that?
Like, seriously, that's why he was sitting there for meditating for 7 days, right? Like, digesting all that information.
Yeah, that's what I'm imagining.
Like a computer.
Processing everything. So this is how they asked him. He says, I have heard this. The ascetic Gautama claims to be all-knowing and all-seeing, to know and see everything without exception. Thus, knowledge and vision are constantly and continually present in me, and while walking, standing, sleeping, or waking. And then he says, "Is that true?" And the Buddha says, "No, that's not true. If someone said that, then they would be misrepresenting me." And then he says that the ascetic Gautama has 3 knowledges. And it's cool how he says it. Like, he says that he didn't just recollect 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 1,000 rebirths. He said many eons of the universe contracting, many eons of the universe expanding, many eons of the universe contracting and expanding. And this is cool because the theory about the universe contracting and expanding and over is relatively new in the West, and here's the Buddha talking about that,
like almost 3,000 years ago.
Yeah. So he started seeing, and I already forgot why I started talking about this, but you had mentioned how it's so easy to forget. And,
yes, yeah. I said I wanted you to say this. I knew you were going to say it, and I was like, I wanted to remind the client. Not the client. Our audience, sorry. I wanted to remind the audience that why it is that we forget these like, these things, these facts.
Yeah, and it's because we're constantly so unconscious. So I started thinking about this, like, how is that possible? How did the Buddha become conscious of all these past lives? Which there's nothing mystical there. This is just memory. Diana, we talked when we were testing our mics, we said, what happened to you today? Mm-hmm. And what did you told us? I was
recollecting.
You were recollecting what happened. Mm-hmm. Was there something magical about that?
I guess I don't see it that way, but you can. I mean, if I look at life as a bunch of miracles, yeah, it is. It's amazing that I could remember, right?
Yes, it is magical. But it's also something that you can do, right? It's not something that's out of this world to do. Although I guess like you said, you can see everything as out of this world, which is kind of the psychedelic perspective. Yeah. But it shows me that it's possible to recollect your day. If it's possible to recollect your day, it's possible to recollect many eons, many universes expanding and contracting. And so it made me think about when we meditate. When we meditate, where we do anapanasati and metta, right? Breathing meditation and loving kindness meditation.
Yeah.
When we're doing it, we sit upright and we pay attention to our breathing, whether it's breathing in long or breathing in short. We're paying attention to it. But what happens when we sit down and meditate? You start thinking about your day, what happened, or the person you're fighting with, or the boss that yelled at you, or what you're going to do.
Your stomach starts growling.
I'm going to go to In-N-Out after this. Yeah. So.
Diana and I were talking about, she was like, have you noticed when we would meditate at the Buddhist Insights Monastery, we started to like notice that when we would meditate, if one person's stomach started growling,
like then
the person next to them's stomach would start growling
every time.
And then the person in front of them, and then the person next to them.
It was the morning puja, before food. So, yeah.
So then all of our stomachs were growling in harmony.
That's funny. Like a chorus of growling stomachs. That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, yes, and most likely that will make you start thinking about food. Like, what am I gonna have for breakfast?
Oh, that was so. One of the days I was like, what was I thinking about? I forgot what type of food, and that's when my stomach started growling.
Are you serious?
And so then I was like, oh yeah, I need to be careful what I think.
That's like such a deep realization,
Yeah,
but
no,
with
totally.
like such a common experience. That's funny.
Yeah,
it's true.
The power of thoughts.
The neurotransmitters that were secreted for that thought to occur sent a message to the glands and got your
start
stomach
making noise because he's not feeding me.
Yep. It's funny. This body is just constantly trying to influence your behavior. It's so interesting.
But I just think it's amazing how she recognized that her thought caused this physical reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Like
that's the paticca samuppada right there. Seeing how things, what conditions determine what outcomes.
Yeah, it was a really good experience to go on that retreat because you're completely submerged in the Dharma. You're with the monks, you're with the lay people. I mean, I'm a lay person too, but like you're just living it all day. So
and you're all going the same direction.
Exactly. So it was important for me to see that because in this reality and the one where I go to work and do my little things, live my little life, it's very distracting, So although I could have that experience, I could totally make time. It's like I don't, and
you're
I
preaching
need to
the choir. I don't sit often either. I joke that my meditation is when I'm facing difficult situations. That's when I meditate to try to relax. But you're right. It's so easy to get lost in samsara and this normal reality that we see as an everyday life.
Wait, Diana, I don't know if I told you this, but after I came back, after I started working, after I went to work, at like the 4th week after we went to our retreat, during my first week at work, every day, even the very first day, I remember I was so aware of everything I did. I noticed, for example, I went to the restroom and the door had, how doors, usually they have something in the hinge that stops it from slamming. This door did not have that. So every time when I first let it go, it slammed and it made a loud noise. And I was like, so then I was aware to not let the door slam. And then I was observing other people's behaviors, and I noticed nobody else cared about the door slamming. And then I would walk around slowly and pay attention to everything, And then I would notice how someone would start talking, and then they would get really agitated about something, and then I would just be like, "It's so silly. Why are you so stressed? It's just let it go." But then I was like, why is everyone... And then for a moment, I was like, why does everyone get so stressed out about everything? And I was just so relaxed. And then I was like, this is so peaceful. I don't know if this is a really nice office, because I had just started at a new office.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because I had just transferred. And I was like, wow, this office is so peaceful. I'm so happy I transferred here. And I was like, man, it's like miracle after miracle. And I was like, is it me or is it really this place? But I think it was a mixture of both. But I'm pretty definite that my experience at the temple, at the retreat, definitely like calmed me. I like calmed down. So when I came back, these silly little things were like these little, the way people were reacting to things. It was just so silly to me.
Yeah.
Was that your experience too?
I remember I didn't want to come back, and I was like sad that I had to be back here because it's so stressful. And I went back and it wasn't as bad. It's not as bad. It's really how you perceive and what you feel and what you tell yourself it is, and that's what it is. You really create your life, and there is a certain. So what I learned out there is that there's spectrums. We're all on spectrums, actually, with where we are in our life, and there's different ones. It's like I can't just tell you, Juan, you need to do this, and you're gonna get there, right? It's like that woman crocheted, and she reached an understanding that was deep, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe on some aspects, I feel very much like I have an understanding of something, right? But then on certain aspects, like I'm like on the complete opposite spectrum of it. So there's just a lot of work to do.
Yeah. A cleaning up process. So I remember when you came back, Joana, you said that office was way more peaceful than your previous office. What's your perspective now?
I think that it is more peaceful than the last office, definitely, because they have a different approach of how they handle their work. But at the same time, I feel that my state of mind was also like so relaxed that nothing was bothering me, like nothing irritated me, and I thought everything that irritated everyone else was so silly. It's so like there were times where I wanted to tell people like it's okay, it's like it doesn't even matter, like let it go. But I was like, no, you can't do that.
You remind me of how Bhante Sanata Vihari is. He's always like not bothered.
I know.
I go to lunch with him, and like a car just drives so crazy, and I see myself. I'm like, really? And sometimes I'll just say it in my head. Sometimes I'll say it out loud. But Bhante never says anything. Or like he even mentioned one story where this guy came and started honking at the temple, and basically telling the Bhante to come outside. And I'm like, dude, that's super rude. He wasn't bothered by it. And so I think that lifestyle is very powerful that you guys experience out there.
Yeah.
It must have tremendous effects. And the way you're describing it seems like how he acts all the time.
Yeah, definitely. And I was like, I realized, so now after time has passed, now it wore off a little bit.
Yeah. That sounds like a psychedelic trip too. When you come back down, a lot of that state of mind gets lost and your old habits come back.
I think there's a way to hang on to it, but you have to really like work at it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all habits.
It's all in your head, like Diana said.
Literally.
Yeah, the way you described the retreat, it sounds like it was like you were living with big mirrors in front of you and just really got to see what the hell is happening inside.
Yeah, I feel very lucky to have had that experience, even though I was, all my anxiety and everything just came up, but that's actually what was supposed to happen. So it was good. It was good for me to feel all the things and feelings and really process them, because it's a perfect place to process things. And like I said, you have the Bhantes there, and we had 2 Bhikkhunis there. We're so lucky,
Yeah.
Was that your first experience with a Bhikkhuni?
Yeah.
Very powerful.
Yeah, it was amazing. Aya Soma and Aya Sudina. They were amazing. So I feel really lucky to have been able to go and just live that life for a little bit. I want to go back, hopefully, in the future.
Well, would you, here's the big question. I don't like this question when they ask me. So
why are you asking me? Before we even get to the question, you're going to put me on the spot.
Did living that lifestyle, did you consider becoming a nun?
I think that I did, but also I know I'm not ready, only because I have so much work to do. But yeah, it just seems so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Joana?
Actually, it was funny because I was like, I was kind of like halfway joking. Maybe it was a joke, maybe it wasn't, I don't know. But I looked at Diana one day and I was like, Diana, let's go start our own monastery. You, me, and Juan. And then she just smiled and I was like, Joanne, you're crazy.
Oh, no. I did not say that.
No. I said that. A little voice in my head said, Joanne, you're crazy.
What do you think is crazy about it?
Because I was saying it out loud.
Oh. Man, I mean, that is the thing that's the only obstacle I see as far as like the Bhikkhunis, is that there is no place for them to practice, like a monastery. And I know in Palmdale they're going to build a Bhikkhuni place, but I think it might be Mahayana, which is fine because there's lots of Theravada bhikkhus and bhikkhunis that live in Mahayana temples. Because what makes you a bhikkhu or a bhikkhuni is not where you're living or who you're living with, is what disciplinary code do you take up.
Right.
So that's what makes you a bhikkhu or a bhikkhuni. But yeah, if there was like just how we have Sarachandra Buddhist Temple meditation center, it would be, if there was like a bhikkhuni place right there or near, that would be, I'm sure a lot of people's perspectives would change as to what is possible. And especially if they see these role models of like Ayya Soma and Ayya Sudina, many possibilities can pop up,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, it got Joanna to think that.
Yeah, no, I was just really amazed. I was like kind of like in awe that Ayya Soma was like, I'm going to start my own monastery, and she did it and she made it happen. Yeah, I was like, damn. And then she showed us.
It's true. I think we were all like, yeah.
Yeah. And then it was funny because she played a video of
Rubina Cortina.
Rubina. Wait, what's her full name?
Rubina Cortina, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's a Mahayana Buddhist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
was she recently there after you guys left?
Was she? Yeah, I think
I
she was.
saw some videos on their channel.
She said she came to visit them once, but I wasn't sure exactly when.
I'm not sure.
But yeah, keep going. I'm sorry.
Well, I was watching the video and like her attitude or her energy was like, I was like, whoa. I was like, when I grow up, I want to be just like her. But it was just like so refreshing to see a woman like so confident and like so loud and like not, and so knowledgeable, and yeah.
And who are you speaking of right now?
I'm talking about the lady we were watching, Ayya Rubina.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow, I need to see some
You've
of her
never
videos.
seen her speak?
No, I don't think so.
Wow.
I
It's going to be
will.
like slap after slap after slap in the face.
Perfect. Very zen. I like that.
We learned something new about
in Zen. Do you know anything about Zen, Diana?
Yeah, actually, so Bhante had given me this book, The Hidden Lamp, and it has a bunch of Zen koans written by women that were, hidden for so many years. It's really amazing book, but we had a little group over quarantine that Ayya Soma, actually, we're so lucky. We had her on a couple of times, so we would read the koan and discuss it and kind of like talk about our initial thoughts. So as we're reading it, we're experiencing it, and then we're discussing it. So it was really cool. But that's been my only experience. I also, I don't know a lot about Zen,
Well, in Zen, there's a lot of stories where like people get kicked in the chest off like a balcony,
or whacked with a stick
or whacked
on
with
the
a
head.
stick or the head. Yeah. So that's why I'm like, oh, slap. Oh, I like that.
It reminds me of Rafiki, you know, in The Lion King,
Yeah.
where Simba's all, I think he's sad about his dad dying, right? And then just like whacks him on the head
A few times, right? Not just once.
to bring him back to the present moment.
That's what it's supposed to do.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, that reminds me. So we're
back to the sutta.
Back to the sutta, yeah. So he got these Zen masters kick you in the chest, slap you in the face. Rafiki smacks you in the head with his stick.
All the things you like.
Yeah, all my kinks, I guess. But so what that what that does is that it snaps you out of being distracted, right?
Right.
So when you meditate, do you get distracted?
Oh, I mean, yeah.
It's one of the most common things, right?
Yeah.
And then do you experience paying attention to how you got distracted, like realizing you're being distracted?
It's been a new thing for me, but yes, like I've been able to do that.
To realize that you're distracted in that moment.
Uh-huh.
So that realizing you're distracted is attention working, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sati,
yeah. Bhante Kalita told you to talk about.
I got it right.
Yeah. Yeah, sadhu. And all it took is Bhante Kalita to tell you to talk about Sati.
Yeah, it's like, remember how I taught you Sati?
Yeah, I don't know if you know. You want to tell her why?
Oh, yeah. So Wednesday, Bhante Srinivasa calls me. He's like, hi, Joana. We have an emergency. We need your voice. And I was like, okay, Bhante. I was like, what's happening? He's like, well, we're doing a video and we need someone to read some stuff for us. And I was like, okay. He's like, can you be here at 7:45? And I was like, yeah. So I went and they're like, okay, hi. I bowed, paid my respects. I'm like, okay, what can I do for you? And then they explained to me they needed me to talk about some information, because they wanted to put a video talking about how the temple was started and what services they provide.
Aww.
And then Bhante Kolita gave me all this written information, right? And he's like, okay, I don't want you to read it. I just want you to say it. So I was like... Okay.
It's like a koan.
So I realized...
You're like,
I was like, wait a minute. So he's asking me to like remember all this information and just say it naturally. And I was like, oh man, Bhante thinks I have like a photographic memory. I was like, I don't know if I should take that as a compliment or if I was like, should you just tell him, Joanne, Bhante, I don't have a photographic memory.
dukkha.
Yeah, the struggle.
And I was like, okay, Bhante, I didn't know what to say. I was like, okay. And I was like, this little voice in my head was just like, Joanne, just do the best you can. Just do the best you can. And I was like, okay, Bhante. And I read it over and over and over and over in my head. And then they're like, okay, have a seat over here. We're going to record you. And I was like, what? And I was like, I thought in my head, I'm like, I thought you just needed my voice. But apparently they want to record me. And I was like, Bhante, I didn't even like, if you had told me that you were going to record me, I would have dressed nicer. Because I came like so casual, you know, I had no makeup. I was like so plain. And then he's like, we don't care about what you look like. So I was like, okay. So then I just sat down and then I looked at the camera and they're like, okay, start. And I was like, and then I just picked it up and I started reading because I could not remember it.
And what else did he want you to talk about besides what was
he
on?
said he was like, yeah, I want you to talk about the temple, how we started, what services we provide, what languages we speak in, and I want you to talk about how I taught you Sati.
Yeah, that's all it took for you to remember Sati, huh?
Yeah, and I was like, Sati? Oh, I know what that is. Yes, Bhante, yes.
I wonder when we get to hear the finished product.
I don't know.
We don't know, huh?
But I'll ask.
Yes. So yes, so that moment of realization where you realize that you were distracted, that is sati. That is attention, paying attention. So what happens when, and I was thinking about what should we talk about besides, interviewing Diana. I'm like, what else should we talk about? Because remember, I think we said like we're going to bring some topics. And so I started thinking about it. And then I was thinking about the sutra. And once my mind is focused on a certain direction, it starts like cutting through deep, like deep. It's like a bunch of explosions happening. So I thought, when you're distracted, because I thought about my own meditation, when you're distracted and you realize you're distracted, that realization is attention. But so when you pay attention, I was distracted, that creates a memory because you remember what it was that you were distracted by. Does that seem?
Yes, that makes sense.
That makes sense, right? So for me, I'll give an example that should be coming up again. When I used to go to the temple, the Friday meditation, during football season, I play fantasy football. And in that, you have to pick certain players and play them, and hopefully they do good. So while I'm meditating, I'll be like, I'm breathing in, breathing out, breathing in. And then I'll be like, should I start Tom Brady or what? And I start getting distracted. And then I realize, I'm distracted. And I realized what I was distracted by. So that is probably what happened to the Buddha. He got so truly attentive that he realized what he was distracted by, which you thinking you exist is a distraction. It's like a daydream. And so he was able to see what he was distracted by all the way past like many eons of contractions and expansions. So that's how it makes sense to me that it's possible to recollect your past lives because you've been unconscious your past lives. And when you're truly attentive, you can remember what you were distracted by. So what do you guys think? Does that make sense?
I thought it was funny how you laughed right after you finished.
No, I'm laughing because of Plato. I love Plato. Plato is Diana's beautiful dog, and he wants to join the podcast.
He is a very animated and
yeah, he's growling at the door right now because we won't let him in.
Yeah, but yeah, so that makes so much sense that how because these past lives are not anything magical; they're just memories. And a memory is just you realizing that you were distracted. At least that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, you know what you reminded me of?
What?
Remember how I told you that I was training people at work in at the last office I was in?
Yes.
So in the month of April, I was training some coworkers, and while I was training them, I would notice when their mind was distracted.
Yes.
And I was like so hyper aware of their attention. And then I realized that I was like so focused that I could just keep doing it like for a long time.
Yeah.
And I was like, why is this happening to me? But I was just so aware of what I was trying to show them and what I wanted them to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so determined and focused. But what was it that you told me after this? After I told you that? I think you said something. But that's what you just said. That's what it reminds me of. How like you can develop if you can focus well enough to be aware of so many things.
Oh yes. It's like I used to call it seeing all the angles. Because that's have you heard of Vipassana?
Yes.
Have you heard of Vipassana?
Yeah, and I'm not true like what it means exactly. I'm not too sure.
Tell us what it means. Because I've heard it, but I'm not really sure what it means.
I know people go on Vipassana retreats.
Yes, and yes, exactly. So in Buddhism, at least Theravada Buddhism, there's two types of supposedly, according to the traditional understanding, which our school, Bhante Punaji's school, it's not really a school, it's just he was our teacher and he taught us. He doesn't go by traditional understanding. So whenever I say according to traditional understanding, that's kind of like me saying that's not really right or to our speculation, I guess. But according to traditional understanding, there's two types of meditation. They say Samatha and Vipassana. And Samatha is supposed to be calming, tranquil meditation. You're trying to calm and tranquilize the mood. So instead of being emotional, you're calm and peaceful. And that's the Samatha practice. And then there's another practice called Vipassana. And Vipassana, they usually see it as being aware of everything that comes up and goes away. But Vipassana literally means like multiple or to split, and Passana means see. And so Samatha and Vipassana both they're supposed to be they are used or utilized when you meditate, when you have Sati. And they're really not two separate things. There's only, how you said Vipassana meditation? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of schools that practice Vipassana meditation, and they think that you don't need the Samatha, because they see Samatha as like jhana. Because when you calm down so much, you go into jhana.
I'm thinking that you just would naturally calm down if you're in observation.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's how they coexist together.
That's how they coexist together. That's right. Because they need both.
Right.
You need both. In order to see properly, you need to be calm. And in order to be calm, you need to see properly. So they work together. That's why the schools that say that separate things, or say, we don't need Samatha, it's all about Vipassana, they really don't know. I mean, according to my speculation, they don't know what they're talking about.
Juan, is this is in Theravada? The Theravada
This
teachings?
is in Theravada, yeah. So, like, have you ever heard of Goenka?
Yes, but I don't know what it is. But I have heard this.
He was a teacher who taught. He was from like India, mm-hmm. and they're very influenced by Brahmanism and the Vedas and all the Hindu teachings. But he became a Buddhist monk, and he started teaching meditation, Satipatthana, according to how he understood it. And there's other schools from like Cambodia and from Burma especially, where they all teach meditation, where it's not about jhana, it's not about calming the body, calming the mind. It's all about just awareness and being aware of whatever comes up and goes away. If you got a pain, being aware of the pain, keeping your attention there. And but yeah, that school came because of, like, hundreds of years after the Buddha, there was these monks who started writing commentaries to the sutras. And when they're writing commentaries to the sutras, they're explaining the teachings of the Buddha according to their own understanding, mm-hmm. and they kind of got veered off. Mm-hmm. And, so Vipassana. So Vipassana is not just one way of practicing, and Samatha is another way of practicing. It's simultaneous, just how you pointed out through your own intuition right now. I'm guessing based on your experience.
Yeah, I have an experience. Yeah.
So it's obvious to you that they're together pretty much. They work simultaneously, mm-hmm. or they're symbiotic. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think too. And you were explaining how you're becoming aware of more and more things.
Well, I just thought it was interesting how it's so easy for me to do it when I'm trying to teach someone something.
Oh,
I can't do it all the time, but for some reason when I'm teaching someone, it's so easy, and it's like I can do it for a long time.
I think it's probably because you're engaging your attention. Because when you because we get paid to work, right? And when we're working, we have to, especially, let's just say if our boss is around, we have to engage our attention. But when we're not at work, we may not engage our attention. Mm. So that's why for you, when you're teaching these people, you have to use your attention. And that's probably why you get into that state where you can see all the angles, which I was calling Vipassana. Multiple ways of seeing. But yeah, so that's what I wanted to say. Just how when you're distracted and you realize you're distracted and you pay attention to what's happening, you also have a memory of what you were distracted by. That's how I think it explains how the Buddha recollected all his past lives. he got to that.
Wow.
He cultivated Sati to such a deep extent,
Like perfected
Sati, that he didn't just remember what he did today. He remembered what he did yesterday, the day before that, the past life, what his name was, what his family was, where his work was, what he ate. Not just that life, but the life before that, what his name was, all the way back like 99,000 lifetimes. And he only stopped looking back because there was no end. I mean, well, we could say there was no beginning. And that's how reality is. There's no beginning or end.
Yeah, after the 7th day, he was like, okay, I'm going to stop. I don't think it ends.
Well, the second power he got, they call it clairvoyance. In Pali, or in the traditional way, they call it the divine eye. Mm-hmm. And they say the divine eye that is purified and superhuman, passes the normal human state. And basically, the way Bhante Punjaji described it, it's like having telescopic vision, microscopic vision, X-ray vision. You can literally see anything. And he was able to see beings who were passing away and reappearing in other realms, just as if someone was walking out of a room into another room and into another room. And that's how he was seeing them. So first he saw all the past lives, and then he saw how beings are disappearing and reappearing based on their actions in other places. And after that, he saw that he says, I have realized the undefiled freedom of the mood. Here it says heart, but it's really the mood, and freedom by wisdom, which really just means purifying or liberating your intellect. In this very life, he saw how to end the emotional influences. And the emotional influences is literally what causes all the dukkha. And that's what makes us think we exist and that we're going to die one day. So, the way this makes sense to me, and I'm sorry if I'm talking a lot,
no,
but all there is, your past lives, when you see what your past lives, you see how you've been distracted. Because if we think we exist, we're being distracted, honestly, because we're not seeing reality how it is. If we think we exist, we're being distracted. And if we're distracted, we're unconscious. And usually when you're unconscious, you're acting. Most of the time when we act...
Oh, you're playing the role.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't even see it like that. I meant like literally like action. But you're right. It is like playing a role. And it's funny they say action when it's time to play the role. So there's a lot of synchronicities there. But anytime you act, you're unconscious. And it's because, why do we do anything? I feel like I'm preaching.
That's a koan now.
Yeah, I forgot my koan at the beginning of
because of the way we're programmed.
Yeah. Yes. And what are you programmed to do?
It depends what environment you're programmed in.
Yes. So most of our programming is to survive. To survive means to go after pleasure and go after procreating. Those are the two main things. Food, pleasure, procreation.
That's what this body or this avatar body that we have is designed to do. Biologically, that's the hard drive that we identify with, but it's really not ours. It's part of this body.
Yeah, it's like a inheritance of this body.
Yeah, it's part of the program of this body.
Yeah. And so the Buddha saw his past lives. He saw that programming because each life, it was the same thing. Being born, getting what you ate, where you had to go work, your family, everything was the same thing. So he saw that. And then he said, well, what has been leading me life after life after life to keep acting? And then he saw beings based on their actions, how they disappear and reappear in different areas. So he first saw how he was distracted and how he's acting unconsciously. And then he turned his attention to right now what everyone is doing. Everyone's acting unconsciously. And so he saw karma means action. He saw the past lives, memories of past lives where he was unconscious. Then he saw the present where everyone's according to their karma, they were disappearing and reappearing like in a hamster wheel. And then he finally went to the emotional influences. He saw so what causes us to act is the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
It's the emotion that makes us act, whether it's we're hungry, sleepy, sad, lustful, angry. These emotions are what makes us act, makes the body move. And so it's interesting how he saw how he was unconscious, and then he saw how karma action works, and then he saw, well, what's triggering this karma? And then he saw it was this emotional influences. And when he saw how these emotional influences, he was able to wake up from the dream of existence. And
whoa, I've never heard you explain it this way.
no, I haven't said it. I haven't said it.
What happened to you?
With what? I needed topics to talk about.
No, I just think it's interesting how like you've explained it in a different manner.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is something I've always thought, but I've never voiced because it sounds far out, and I don't know if it sounds boring.
No, it's like he was watching the movie that was had taken place during billions of years, and then he put the dots together, and he figured it out.
And doesn't it make sense that that's how he would wake up? Because people, when they hear this, they say, "Oh, he got this power, and then he woke up," but they don't see the correlation of how that led. See, they don't see how that movie ended to that conclusion. So I find that interesting. I
didn't see how this movie. I didn't see that. I didn't see this
correlation
either until you
pointed it out. Yeah. What do you think, Diana?
I see a pattern of this retracting and expanding is always something I experience when someone's giving a Dharma talk, even when you're talking. Like, I always feel this retracting and expanding. Like, something you say will trigger, like, this expansion of thought, and then it'll take me somewhere, right? And then I come back, and it retracts.
Wow.
So I feel like the Buddha, maybe that's in connection to what you're saying. Like, he probably was, like, really deep into his meditation and like had these expanding thoughts and then would come back, right? Because that's his practice. But yeah, I could see how that.
It's like he saw this, what you just described, and he just kept going bigger
further.
And bigger and bigger.
Like it expanded,
yeah.
right? There's nothing there, but it was expanding.
Yeah.
And then it came back.
And expanded to the point where he saw through everything. And that's what allowed him to piece together and see the cause of all the lives, the cause of all the appearing and disappearing from one realm to another, and that cause was the emotional influences.
Also because we're humans and we're cyclical, like we live in cycles.
Yep.
So maybe he saw his cycle, connected it to his karma, and this is what I'm imagining, right?
Yeah.
So what is my cycle? Oh, I do this a lot. So maybe in the past, I've been doing this for so long and I'm still not changing, I feel like maybe that's how also he might have connected his past lives. In my head, I don't know.
No, that's true. And if you really see that you've been doing this for so long, you kind of get this passionate, like dispassionate, one word, dispassionate. Mm-hmm. Like it loses its luster and like you're over it. You kind of get over it. Like, I don't know, like, I play Yu-Gi-Oh! I bring it up, like, all the time.
We're going to get you your tournament. Don't worry.
I need to win my tournament. But I go through periods where I play lots and lots of Yu-Gi-Oh! And then it loses its luster. Or at least when I play with one deck over and over and over. And then you just get tired of it. You're like, all right, I need something new.
You get bored.
And
you need a new challenge.
Exactly. And that's probably what the Buddha thought too, like, or what he experienced. Like, if you see what you have done your last 99,000 lifetimes, you're probably gonna get that feeling like, I'm over it. I'm over this. This is boring, so mechanical and unconscious, and
forgetful.
And forgetful, yeah, and distracted. That's why. Oh yeah. What helped me piece this together is looking at my experience. How when I'm distracted and I finally realize I'm distracted, I realize what I was distracted by, and realizing what you were distracted by is just a memory. And so that's what the Buddha experienced when seeing all his past lives. He just realized, oh, I was distracted all these lives, and you see what you were distracted by.
And you know what that reminds me of? How Diana earlier you were talking about how every time you had an experience with a psychedelic substance, you kept getting the same message over and over again.
Yeah.
And then you said, I think at a certain point you said, why do I keep doing this? Like I'm going to get the same message again.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's true. You know, Alan Watts once said that psychedelics is like getting a phone call, and like once you pick up the phone and get the message, there's no need to keep getting. Yeah,
he's spot on with that. And at least in my experience, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, very interesting. So I do have more questions before we go, Diana. So these psychics that you work with, were they legit?
You got all serious. You like got closer to.
I put a little suspense in
you know, so it's funny because we always had a disclaimer at the store that the whole store was for in italic for entertainment purposes only. So we weren't liable for anything that was said, or you know. So
is that something that most psychics have?
I you know, that's
a legal liability thing,
I guess.
Yeah, because you could get sued if you're like, but the psychic told me to do this.
Well, I have a story if you want to hear it. There was one time I was walking around the store just, you know, fixing things or whatever, and this woman comes up to me and she was very distressed. I could tell she was flustered. She's with a man, and she was like, I forgot the name of the psychic, and I won't say it, but she asked me for a certain psychic, and I was like, oh, she's not in today. You know, she didn't come in. And she's like, oh, she told me that my boyfriend was cheating on me.
Oh,
and,
my God.
You know, he's not. And I almost killed him.
Oh,
and
my God.
Oh, my God.
And I was like, she just told me, like, I don't know if I want to hear this, you know? And I was like, oh, well, I actually didn't know what to do. And I was like, well, you know, she was getting really aggressive with me. And I was like, if you could please stop talking to me that way. And, yeah, I was being very calm. And she said, I'm going to kill. She kept saying she was going to kill him. And I was like, oh, this isn't. I mean, those aren't funny words to me, you know?
I don't know what I'm laughing.
So I was like, you know, ma'am, if you keep saying this, I'm going to have to call the police. You know? And then she started calling me names, and
oh my
you know,
God, I'm gonna kill you.
So she started saying all these things actually. And then she got like hysterical.
What the hell?
And it kind of escalated really quickly, because it was like a really quick conversation, and just like she took everything she was feeling towards that psychic, she took it out on me. And so then I went behind the counter with my other coworkers, and we were just all watching her like going, you know, she was upset. And so I ended up going to the back, and they ended up escorting her out. And the story is that she was actually like she had something kind of mental disorder going on. Yeah. And that was actually her caretaker, but in her mind that was her boyfriend.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
This is like a M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah. Whoa. Yeah, does that tell you? It was a crazy story.
Oh, my God.
So what the psychic had told her was that there was another woman, and, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Do you think the psychic knew?
No, they didn't. I don't think they knew. But then what's crazy is that he did have a wife and kids. And like, I don't know. Take it what you will from that. But he ended up quitting, you know, being her.
Oh, so the caretaker was a guy?
Yeah. He was with her when I was talking to her, and I remember looking at him like, dude, like, why aren't you running away like this person? But I guess
she's telling you she's gonna kill you.
Yeah. So
I wonder if he knew that she was talking about him.
Yeah, she did. I mean, he did. I apparently, like, they just let her believe this. It was really weird.
Oh my
You know,
goodness.
part of the reason I left also, but yeah.
Did these type of stories happen more than once?
That was there was like a couple other things, just weird situations.
She may
yeah.
have been like schizophrenic or something.
I don't know, but you know, I think it was her letting her believe that was also there was issues everywhere.
Perhaps she was like so out of it that they didn't see any point in trying to tell her the truth because she wanted to believe what she wanted to believe.
I mean, we all have that problem, huh?
That's true. That's true. I think I'll be the king of games at Yu-Gi-Oh one day.
Guys, don't give up on me. Always tell me the truth. If that's the case.
Yes, we're gonna make a pact right now.
All right, I'm down. Who's got the knife? Let's start a blood pact. So that's an example. So I asked you, is it legit? And you use this to say how possible it may not be.
Well, you know, she wasn't wrong.
Yeah, she was
This
right.
is my point, you know. But
because the caretaker had a wife and kids. You said?
But she didn't know that.
Oh.
So
man.
was she right? Was she lying? No. But
That's true.
was she being psychic?
So
I don't know.
No money back.
No.
No refunds. Did you ever get any readings?
No, I didn't like to.
No.
I still don't like to. My coworkers, I guess they did like mini ones before I left because I always refused to. There was always like psychics like, let me read you, and like, you know, they like doing it. But
would they do tarot readings?
yeah, there was, you know, there's different types of readers. Some use cards, which is I always say what I've learned, it's like more for show. It's like you're putting on a show for people so they can open up. So
it's like therapy, huh?
Yeah. So some people had cards, some people didn't. Some people use numbers. Some people use there was an astrologer there, and she was always busy. She was really interesting. She was like 90-something years old. She was into physics. She was legit.
Oh.
Do you think she was all show too?
I don't know. I think if there's anyone there that's a reader, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? I actually met someone who was also an astrologer, and I was led to go see him because I was told that he was going to teach a meditation class, but it ended up being like someone who tells the future. He was an astrologer who tells your future. So when I showed up there, I was like scared because there were no students there. It was just me and my friend and that guy, and he was like a 6'2" guy, you know, over 200 pounds, and I was like, oh my God, Joanne, what did you get yourself into? Like, I trusted my friend. She was like, yeah, it's a meditation class. It was not a meditation class. It was a reading. And then I was like, I went inside and I was just like watching carefully everything that was happening. And then I started to relax, but eventually he basically started with me telling me my future. But it was more like he said, what's your birth date? What time were you born? And then he picked up a book and he looked something up and he said, and then he stood up and he went up to this graph that it was like an astrology graph, and it has all the like different like the Leo, the Taurus,
the zodiac signs.
Yeah, the zodiac signs, and it's like a big map of the solar system. And then he said, you were right here, right now you're right here, and right now this is happening and you're going over here. And I didn't really understand what he was saying, but he was like, here, you're here, and you're going here, and this, and this is happening. And I was like, okay. And then he sat down, and then he started saying these things about me. He said, yeah, you're like this. And I was like, yeah, I know. Yeah, this and this happened to you. And I was like, yeah, I know. Yeah. Or you're like telling me facts about myself and like expecting me to be surprised that he knows these things.
Yeah.
But I wasn't surprised. And I was like, yeah, I know this about myself. Yeah, I know that. And then like, I wasn't really asking for this information. And he did tell me this is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. And this is going to happen. But I just like, you know, I was like, okay. I didn't believe it, but I was just like, okay. And then my friend was like itching to ask him about what was going to happen with her boyfriend. And then that's when I realized that's why she lied to him. That's why she brought me here, because she wanted to know about what was going to happen with her boyfriend, and not to meditate.
Yeah. And she needed a ride, no?
Yeah, and she needed a ride. Yeah. But yeah, everything he said that was going to happen did happen. And I just thought, but I remember asking him all these. Okay, so first he was telling me all these things, and I was like, how did you become an astrologer? And then he told me his whole life story. And the first thing he said was that every single job he ever had fired him.
Oh, wow.
He couldn't keep a job. And that his parents wanted him to be a doctor or a lawyer. And that his parents are like very like strict and like orthodox or like Christian. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And he's like, well, that means what I'm trying to say is that my parents had like my whole life planned out for me. And I turned out nothing near what they wanted me to be. And then I would like ask him question after, because for some reason I just started to find him very fascinating. And then he ended up telling me everything about his life. And then I asked him something about his mom. And then he said, he started talking about how he had this memory, this dream where he's drowning. And he kept having the dream over and over and over. And then one day he realized that his mom tried to drown him when he was a baby.
Damn.
And then he said, well, thanks a lot for bringing that up. And then I was like, I didn't know what to say. But yeah, it was a very interesting experience. And I think that I remember him saying, when I asked him, how did you get into this? He said that after he kept failing at everything he ever tried, he finally just gave up, went to the library and started doing the things that he loved. And he had always been interested in astrology. And he literally like got his hand on every book he could get on astrology, learned it, figured it out. And then he started traveling to different countries and like giving astrology readings. And then he learned that he could pick up languages not like literally like languages, but he could understand people with what they were saying just by like feeling out what was going on. And people thought he understood their language, but he would tell them, no, I don't speak Chinese. I just know what you're saying. Yeah, I understand what's happening. And then, yeah, like that's how he makes a living now.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah.
You know, I asked Bhante Kalita, like no, I didn't ask actually. Someone asked at the temple, like, is astrology, like, is there something to that? And he said, yeah. I was surprised.
Well, you know, in the story of the Buddha, didn't an astrologer tell his parents that he was going to be, you know...
he was a mystic, yeah. And
okay.
And yeah, but yeah, that's what the Hindu, that continent, they were really into astrology, and they were mathematicians and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there's something legit to it, but it's also, you know, there's a book in a group of books in the sutras that says like a monk doesn't go to see these readers and do all these things, like
right.
So it's, I think in Buddhism it's kind of like frowned upon.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think it's really interesting, and I love that.
It is interesting. Like, what do you not want me to know about these things? Like,
what do you think?
I think it's more, you know, when you go and you get a reading, you're either contemplating the past or the future, and Buddhism tells you to be present.
Yeah.
So it's just a distraction, you know, and that's my observation so far. But there is something to it, and I do think that people have gifts, or what we call gifts, as to like reading people and stuff, for sure, you know? Yeah.
Like there's in Mexican tradition, there's a lot of like curanderos, no?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They do different things. Don't they do things with like eggs and stuff?
I don't know too much about that, but yeah, there's the one where they put the egg around you and it's supposed to, you know, get all your negative energy.
So interesting.
But you know, you would go to a curandero, even like they're the doctors, you know?
Yeah.
It was like before Western medicine, you know, you would go to him for the ailment, like anything that you had, and they would have a remedy. They were like the Buddha.
Yeah,
you know?
and they really did help people.
Yeah. It wasn't so much seen as like
weird
magic. Yeah, like it's interesting.
Yeah, I remember my brother once, his leg stopped working one day.
Whoa.
And like he called me. I think he called me on the phone or something, and he told me to go outside, and he was on the ground, like lying against the wall. And I was like, what happened? He's like, my leg stopped working. And so he was having issues like that. And he was like, he was probably like in his early 20s. So he's like really healthy and really strong. And so we took a drive down somewhere in Mexico, like past Tijuana, and he went to see a curandera. And apparently his ex-girlfriend was doing black magic on him. That's what they said. And I don't know. I wasn't in there with him, so I don't know what they did. But there could be something to it. And also, I know that the placebo effect is very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you know about the placebo effect? Yeah.
If you believe in something, it'll happen.
Yeah. So people think about the placebo effect and think like, it's like they think it's proving that everything is BS.
Everything is mind.
Yeah. And people dismiss stuff, like, oh, that's just the placebo effect. But even just analyzing the placebo effect is so interesting because your mind is literally
it's
healing
very powerful.
So
thoughts.
There's something to it. So it could be that there is some magic, or maybe not magic. We call magic just stuff we don't understand.
Right.
Miracles.
Synchronicities, miracles. Or it could be just your own mind, and even that's just a miracle too.
I think people that go to see curanderos and stuff like that, where there's nothing wrong with that, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Everyone's different. We all have different paths, but there's still people that are looking for outside things to help them inside, and that's okay because the way that we were programmed, we're not told to go inside. Especially by ourselves, like that's scary, right?
Yeah.
We've always had somebody hold our hand for everything,
yeah.
So we need somebody holding our hand. Even in Buddhism, I feel like I go talk to the Bhante, like, oh, this is, like I'm still outside of myself,
Yeah.
So
it's interesting. That reminds me of your story when you went on your vision quest. It's like that vision quest is forcing you to go inside.
Yeah, even though you're like.
Going out,
you're outside alone. No one's gonna hold your hand, and that's when all your stuff comes out. There's no excuses because it's no one else but you.
No distractions.
Yeah.
Besides your own mind.
Yeah.
Kind of like at the monastery.
Yeah. Same thing, but with there, it's like, you're given all the tools. The Bhante say, here's your toolbox. We'll be here, but you don't need me, but we'll be here.
Yeah. And there's structure, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So like, I feel like with the vision quest, I think it's like, it's not that it's not structured. I don't know, maybe it's not, but it's a different experience, You
have to rely on yourself.
They talk to you, the elders talk to you before, and they do all the things before and then after. So then you talk to someone after too, before and after. Mm-hmm.
Would you ever consider like going to one of these like elders, but where they do psychedelics?
Yeah, I've been invited. It's funny because synchronicities and stuff.
Yeah.
So the first time I had gone to the temple, I went back maybe another time, and then I didn't go for like a year. And then I had found Bhante Sanatha Vihari on Instagram. And he one day posted this picture of all the lay people wearing white. And I was like, oh, how beautiful, And he's like, yeah, we're having a ceremony. Come. And that same day, I was supposed to go to a peyote ceremony. I was getting ready to go to this ceremony. And for whatever reason, my cell phone towers, for my service, they weren't working. And I wasn't getting reception. So the girl that was supposed to come pick me up.
She couldn't.
We just could not get in touch with each other.
Wow.
So I didn't hear from her, and it was already past the time that she was supposed to come. And then Justin messaged me. He's like, hey, you should come. Like, come. Justin and Marlon were there. And I was like, okay, I guess that's a sign.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I ended up.
The devas blocked the cell phone tower.
Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
That's so crazy.
I wasn't supposed to go, Yeah. It's been a couple of times I've been invited and it just doesn't happen. And I'm okay with that. It's okay. Yeah.
That's good. Just, go with what happens and don't fight it.
It was supposed to happen.
Yeah, totally.
we're almost finished. I always keep thinking of questions. What do you have you experienced any psychic events yourself?
Man, this is hard because like I don't want to say yes or no, and also like sometimes I'm like, can I trust my own mind? Like I don't know, you know.
Oh,
so
that's deep.
That reminds me, Diana. Once Bante said he learned not to trust his own mind.
Yeah, that's actually why I'm like I don't think I can either, because like especially in meditation in New Jersey, and when I had this moment where I really saw like my whole movie, right? It was like scene after scene.
Like
and then
Buddha.
and then I saw the spaces in between, which was really cool, you know.
Ooh.
Yeah, so then I was like, okay, cool, you know. And like what a mess. So I feel like because of my experiences, maybe from the past, I don't know, I can pick up on things easily, but I don't know if that's like being psychic or just like aware of people's body language and stuff like that, you know. I don't know.
I don't think it was just body language, Diana, because I was telling Diana how there was a moment when I was at the retreat. We were both there. I was in the room by myself, and I had to make a phone call to my boss, and I had to ask him for some information, and his response was so negative that gave me a really, really nasty feeling in my stomach. And then I was just sitting there, you know, and then Diana walks in the room and she goes, "Sorry, Joana." And then she walks to her, I think she went to get something, and then she was walking out. And then right before she walks out, she's like, "Joana, are you okay? Is everything okay?" And then I just looked at her. I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, how the hell did she know?
Yeah.
Like she felt it. And she didn't even like look at my face. Like I was just sitting there like I wasn't moving. I wasn't like moving my face. She felt it. She felt it.
Yeah, what happened, Diana?
I don't know. And then I asked her, I was like, "Diana, how did you do that?" And then she's like, "I can't explain it, but it's just like a feeling." I think that's what you said. Is that what you said?
I don't remember.
I think you said, it's just something I feel, something like that.
Well, I guess we don't know, huh?
Nope.
Well, the cool thing is, and the sutras is packed with psychic powers all over, so it's definitely within the realm of possibilities.
Yeah.
And, you know, what we think of as everyday normal consciousness is not the only reality, you know, as we've discovered through psychedelics or meditation or crocheting. But yeah, I always find that very interesting. And I always found your story, at least the little bits that I know. I know we haven't gotten a chance to really talk for at least this long.
Yeah.
this podcast length. But from the little I've gathered, you had a very interesting story. You've always been very, very kind and attentive. And, you know, when I go to the temple, I talk to everyone, most people there. Some people talk and they're just talking to talk. I don't know if you guys have noticed that.
Yes, I noticed that.
But when I talk to you, Diana, I feel like you're really listening.
Yeah, you're awake.
You're awake, yeah. Because I remember, like, I'll talk to someone at the temple, and, you know, they may not be so aware, or they might get distracted. And you can feel that. If you're paying attention and someone's not paying attention, you can tell. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess it's like, you know, kind of a superficial conversation. And I remember, like, we would talk every once in a while after meditation class or after sutra class. And, like, you would ask me something and I would answer. And, like, you would be paying attention and actually follow up. And I'm like, oh, this is a real conversation. Like, oh, okay. And then, you know, we would talk. And that would didn't happen just once, but it was most of our interactions. So it's something I think is pretty cool about you, and I appreciate. And you definitely have, whether you have psychic powers, I don't know then, because we don't know. I don't know. But
well, Juan, usually when you ask someone a question and they don't say no, and they don't say yes, usually means yes.
Okay, that's what I'm going with.
That is my speculation.
Yes.
I might just be crazy, guys. Like, we can't rule that out.
That's true. I mean, that's definitely a possibility, and I'm more than happy to be around crazy people. But yeah, any last words, Joana?
Yeah, I just want to say that I am really grateful for having met you, Diana. And very happy that I went to the monastery and that I had the opportunity to practice there with you. And I'm just grateful that you were so willing and generous to open up and share your wisdom and your insights and your experience with us. Because for me, I feel that it's very valuable because you're a girl and I can relate to you, you know? And I find myself at times in awe with your strength for having overcome these difficulties in your life and your past, and the fact that you continue to move forward and grow from them and continue regardless of anything else. I think that's awesome, and I love that. And I know that sharing your wisdom is going to help other people who are listening here as well. And I can't wait to read your first book.
Aww.
Yeah, your first book and the monastery with Joana. And I still have so many questions, but I'm going to hold off. Maybe we're going to have you again on.
Yeah, whenever. If you guys want to record here, you're welcome.
Thank you. It's,
Thank you.
For the listeners, this is a really cool room. We got like a full recording studio here. It's like I joked when we got in here, but I wasn't joking. Like, it was real that this feels like the Joe Rogan podcast. But yeah, so I definitely want to have you on again because we really got to talk to you and get to know your backstory, but I also want to know about your practice and like your experience with Buddhism, which that was my goal to talk about. But we didn't even get to it. And I can already hear Bhante Sanatha saying like we should have asked you more questions.
Juan, I think definitely next time we need to bring our notebook.
Yeah.
We didn't bring our notebooks.
Yeah.
I have one thing to say, one last thing.
Yes, I was going to say, what do you have to say?
So remember I told you I was in the kuti and there was this woman statue, multiple women statue. So then later, actually, I found out it was Kuan Yin.
Oh,
and if you know who Kuan Yin is, I'm not too familiar.
Avalokiteshvara.
Oh, what does that mean?
What does that mean? So, Kuan Yin is the Japanese name of Avalokiteshvara, which is the bodhisattva of
compassion,
infinite compassion.
Right.
Yeah.
So then what was amazing about learning about Kuan Yin and what bodhisattva she is or he is, right? There's like some kind of controversy.
Yes.
So this bodhisattva has a jar and it's supposed to carry all the tears of the world and sadness. And so how funny that I was sad and I was crying and I went into that kuti to cry.
And she was there for you.
She was there and I stopped crying, you know?
That's deep.
Yeah.
That's
totally.
Sick ass synchronicity. You know, that's really deep.
I know. I found out maybe 2 years after that who it was, because it wasn't printed like what she looked like, you know, but I was like, I don't know who this is.
Did you learn about this? Oh, I know you said a few years later, but did you know that at the Empty Cloud Monastery they have a Kuan Yin statue?
Yeah, she's right in front of us.
Yeah, I went to, she's everywhere actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, she supposedly has like many arms too.
Yeah.
And it's to help everyone.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Yeah.
That's kind of like scary deep.
I know. Yeah. Life is funny.
You know, there, like you said, you said it in the beginning, there's miracles everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's a miracle. It's just that we lost that wonder like that we had as a kid, like you mentioned in the beginning. So, and that's what I think me and Joana are starting to notice is like there's these miracles, synchronicities, whatever you want to call it, they're everywhere. And especially they say that the more you go into the spiritual journey, the more and more conscious you become of these things.
Yep.
That's deep. That's going to stick with me for a while. I'm going to be thinking about that.
Yeah.
Her being there for you. And it's so random because at a Theravada temple, there's shouldn't be.
And you know what's even funnier is that so every job I've had since then, there's been Kuan Yin statues.
Really?
Yeah. So I still see
man.
her real. Yeah, it's pretty interesting because they're just statues. I'm not a statue worshiper, you know. But it's interesting.
It is very interesting. This universe, I always say, is so weird, so much weirder than we think it is.
This is the expanding and retracting that's happening in our minds right now. We're like wondering, and then it's coming back, and then we're wondering, you know.
Yeah. Now we just gotta finish the job. All right. Well, I guess we should cut it off here, even though I can keep on talking all night. Thank you, everyone who has listened. Thank you, Joana. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you, Diana.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us here.
Yeah, thank you for having us and bringing us together.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, and Hugo for having us.
Yes,
really
Hugo, our engineer for the podcast. He did a great job. Yeah. He set us up. He's gonna send me the recording. So I am very appreciative of Hugo.
Next time we'll make you sound like Darth Vader.
Oh, yes. That's how I should do my beginning every podcast. I would love that.
You should, like, seriously.
Okay, I'll try it. Well, thank you, everyone. May you all be well, happy, comfortable, and peaceful. Thank you very much. See you next time.